Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 841, Are You an Idiot? Ever since he entered the Feather Holy See, Frederick had been facing conflicts with Zen. The York Divine Kingdom already had an irreconcilable conflict with him. Both Marine and War Emperor York wanted to eliminate Zen as soon as possible. However, Frederick also knew that the difference between his strength and Zen's own was too great, so he tried his best to endure these small conflicts. In Frederick's eyes, Zen would be easily killed by his father when he left the secret land. But Frederick was still the crown prince of the York Divine Kingdom after all. Moreover, he was the most outstanding one of the 4 crown princes among the divine kingdoms. There was a limit to his tolerance. He had already tried his best to tolerate Zen, but Zen was too arrogant. How could Frederick endure it? An indescribable rage rushed straight to his head. If it were anyone else, Frederick would have already launched an attack, even against someone like the little monster. However, thinking about Zen's almost abnormal strength, Frederick gritted his teeth and held back the impulse to attack him. What if I don't? What is it that you want? You want to fight me? No, I won't dare attack you, and there is no need to do so. Zen smiled as a trace of indifference appeared in his eyes. At the same time, a formless soul pressure slowly exuded from him. Zen's soul was close to the Jasper fighting soul realm. The soul pressure he emanated was enough to frighten the divine level talents, including Frederick. Moreover, Zen's soul had fused with the will of the world. Due to the rising conflict between the two of them, many warriors who had left the mine didn't return to the pyramid. Instead, they watched the fight from the sidelines. Most of them knew that even if there was a conflict between Frederick and Zen, it would be foolish of them to step in and take action. The reason for this was simple. Zen was able to survive the attack of War Emperor York unharmed. In other words, a Soul Sea Realm Master couldn't do anything to Zen if he didn't activate his domain. Which meant also that no warrior below the Soul Sea Realm could harm Zen. He would not dare make a move against Frederick either. He had already offended the York Divine Kingdom to a great extent. If Zen were to fight against Frederick here and injure or even kill him, War Emperor York would definitely not let him off the hook once he arrived at the Feather Emperor's secret land to retrieve the soul core. Everyone was only here to watch the show. However, as Zen released his soul pressure, the expressions on the faces of the divine level talents instantly changed. The aura released by Zen's soul was not inferior to that of a Soul Sea Realm Master, in fact it was stronger than that of a mediocre one. No divine level talent could withstand it. At the moment, they felt as if they were not facing a single person, but the world, the sea, or the mountains. The aura was majestic and difficult to resist. Even war kings and war emperors had to bow before it. At the beginning, the divine level talents behind Frederick had been clenching their teeth, trying to tolerate Zen's aura. How could they accept the fact that they were being pushed back by the aura of a warrior who was only at the middle stage of virtual tribulation realm? However, as Zen's aura continued to increase, the divine level talents couldn't endure it any longer. Their legs trembled, and at the same time, they could not help but retreat one by one. Frederick was the only one left standing on the spot, his eyes staring fixedly at Zen as he said through gritted teeth, "Thad Luo. Don't you dare go too far." Indeed, Zen did not attack. He was only using his soul pressure to try and suppress Frederick. The problem was that with such powerful soul pressure, how different was this from outright fighting Frederick? In truth, Frederick wore a necklace called the Heart Condensation Necklace, which was a sacred weapon. The necklace could eliminate 60% of the opponent's soul attack. In other words, once Zen's soul pressure released itself, it would get decreased by 60%. Protective weapons that were also sacred weapons were extremely rare to begin with. They far surpassed top-grade sacred weapons used for attacks. What was more, sacred weapons that could resist soul attack were even rarer. Thus, the Heart Condensation Necklace was worth as much as a semi-divine weapon. However, the necklace's design was more feminine. In the middle of the necklace was a purple gem called the Heart Condensation Gem, which played an extremely important role. Because this necklace was made for female warriors, Frederick always wore it inside so no one could detect it. It was because of this necklace that Frederick was struggling to hold on in front of Zen. Huh, Zen's face revealed a trace of astonishment, but his lips immediately formed an even brighter smile. Your soul is far from the fighting soul realm, yet you are able to withstand my soul pressure. Interesting, let's see how far you can go. As he finished speaking, Zen lifted one foot and took a step toward Frederick. An almost unhealthy flush covered Frederick's face. However, in the blink of an eye, the flush disappeared and was replaced with a deathly pale color. Frederick clenched his teeth, stubbornly enduring the soul pressure. In truth, Zen's strength was on par with that of a Soul Sea Realm master. It was just that he hadn't experienced a life or death crisis, hadn't activated his Soul Sea, and didn't have his own domain. However, Frederick was unwilling to admit to this fact. He still regarded Zen as someone of the same level. He considered Zen to be only the most outstanding one in the younger generation. Because of it, Frederick refused to admit his defeat before Zen. If the person before him was not Zen but a Soul Sea Realm warrior, Frederick would have probably given in and bowed his head. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. With every step that Zen took, the soul pressure on Frederick increased, his face turning impossibly paler. 6 or 7 steps later, Frederick's face was as pale as a sheet. I'm going to kill you. Frederick could not hold it in any longer. Suddenly, a short halberd materialized in his hand. Zen saw this and the corners of his mouth curled up. I have heard that although the Heavenly Thunder Halberd is a single-use consumable, it is a semi-divine weapon and that it is invaluable. Your father gave it to you so you could protect your life with it, correct? This short halberd at least costs 300,000 to 400,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. I just want you to return 9,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals to Callan, yet you refuse to do so. Are you foolish? Haven't you learned arithmetic before? I know you don't want to lose face, but even though you are the crown prince of a divine kingdom, you must learn how to perceive the situation. Moreover, a divine kingdom is of no real importance in this world. In the upper world, it would be like a speck of dust. If you can understand this, you will understand what you must do. Zen's gaze was cold, but his words contained an irresistible stateliness. Fiona's eyes lit up when she heard Zen's words. On one hand, she was grateful that Zen had helped her and her brother out. On the other hand, his words awakened something in her. She had always been doted upon by her father, the Emperor of Wind Divine Kingdom, which was why she was so innocent and elegant, even willful. But even though her father was the Emperor of a divine kingdom, he was not bound to protect her forever. Her future could be very different. Perhaps she should reconsider her life goal. Zen didn't care about the 9,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. He had already accumulated a massive amount of Life Vitality Crystals just from selling the ores. Of course, Frederick didn't care about these 9,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals either. If he really returned them, it would mean that he was afraid of Zen, and that was the last thing he wanted. Therefore, even though Zen's words were well-founded, Frederick refused his suggestion. The life vitality in his hand suddenly flashed, purple lightning wrapping itself around the Heavenly Thunder Halberd. The runes on the Heavenly Thunder Halberd began gleaming continuously. Clearly, these were activated by Frederick. The martial artists gaped at the scene, their expressions changing instantly. Many of them had witnessed firsthand the power of the Heavenly Thunder Halberd before. In a mere instant, it had killed many ghosts. The Heavenly Thunder Halberd was comparable to a Soul Sea Realm warrior's attack. Many warriors retreated. Camilla, Fiona, Callan, and the others distanced themselves from Zen. Even if they didn't die, they could still be severely wounded by the power of the Heavenly Thunder Halberd. Alas, what an idiot! Zen sighed softly and took another step toward Frederick. Chapter 842, Time to Mine. In that moment, Frederick's nerves were also stretched taut. How could he not understand the arithmetic that Zen was talking about? The value of the Heavenly Thunder Halberd was simply impossible to measure within the 4 divine kingdoms. In the upper world, perhaps the halberd was only worth several 100,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. But in the lower world, no one could afford to buy it. All semi-divine weapons were priceless. The last time Frederick had used a halberd to protect himself, it had made his heart ache. Now he was going to use the last halberd against Zen. Crack! The surface of the halberd had a circular red rune and emitted fragmented lightning. As long as he lightly pressed his finger on the rune, the activated halberd would keep shooting. His fingers were trembling. The pressure that Zen had on him was too great, to the point that he was beginning to lose consciousness. And right now, he really wanted to give up. He feared Zen instinctively. His instinct constantly reminded him that he should not go against this man because he was not someone he could afford to offend. However, another voice sounded out, "Kill him. Even if you have to use a halberd to kill him, it will be worth it. Your father will reward you generously." Blood pumped furiously from his heart to his veins. His eyes became bloodshot as his finger pressed down on the rune on the halberd. A rumble sounded in. A shrill whistling sound emanated from the short halberd. It was extremely unpleasant to the ears. This was the sound of the lightning channeling through the body of the halberd. A gigantic bolt of lightning abruptly burst forth from the halberd's front. "Go to perdition, mongrel," shouted Frederick loudly. He refused to swallow his pride, so he refused to yield to Zen. Although his voice was drowned out by the thunderous roar, Zen was still able to clearly hear him. Zen smiled. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was covered by a thick bolt of lightning. This huge wave of lightning energy was like a river as it surged towards Zen and extended far into the distance. Crack! Every divine-level talent was blinded by the dazzling light. The thick bolt of lightning destroyed everything in its way as it rushed towards the vast Feather Holy Sea. There were still a few faint golden lights on the surface of the Feather Holy Sea, which were dispersed under the intense influence of the lightning's power. The dazzling lightning lasted for a long time before gradually dissipating. They slowly opened their eyes and goggled at Zen. Zen was still standing at where he was, without a scratch on his body. Even the mighty warriors of the Soul Sea realm would find themselves in a difficult position when struck by such lightning. But Zen still looked faintly amused. Neither his expression nor his posture had changed in the slightest. A divine-level talent sighed as he saw this. "Is Zen an incarnation of God?" he said. "No one can defeat him. He's just reached the virtual tribulation realm, but he's unharmed even under such a fierce attack. I'm afraid that he will dominate the entire great world someday in the future. It's a power transfer. He stole it from the little monster, but the little monster himself couldn't use his power to this extent. After all, the heavenly thunder halberd was a semi-divine weapon. His body was as strong as a sacred weapon, but he would not have been able to withstand the power of the lightning with his physical body alone. However, he had never intended to use his body from the start. The moment Frederick had activated the heavenly thunder halberd, he had transferred all the injuries he had suffered into the Feather Holy Sea. Although the Feather Holy Sea was just an inland sea, it covered a quite large area. It could dissolve even the greatest power of lightning, and the lightning that had struck Zen's body couldn't cause any ripples in it. Zen released his soul pressure and took another step forward, shaking his head and saying, "You've suffered a huge loss in this business." Frederick gritted his teeth as he looked at Zen, who was completely unharmed. His eyes burned with anger as he shouted, "So what? My father will definitely kill you. You can't possibly be a match for my father." "I don't deny it," said Zen, nodding and taking another step forward. "Then why aren't you on your knees? I can beg my father to spare your life." Frederick laughed, already caught up in the madness, his eyes showing heavy traces of paranoia. "You are not qualified." Zen stared with clear, calm eyes at Frederick, who seemed to be going crazy, and took another step forward. Crack! A soft explosion sounded from Frederick's body. Countless fragments appeared on the gem of the heart condensation necklace on his chest. The gem released an invisible enchanted barrier that blocked Zen's soul pressure. But as Zen pressed forward, the gem was no longer able to withstand the intense pressure and finally broke apart. Frederick's soul was not much stronger than the other martial artists. Without the protection of the gem, his fragile soul couldn't resist Zen's pressure at all. In just 3 seconds, he felt the world spinning around him. His eyes rolled back as his body stiffened and he fainted. Zen shook his head as he looked at Frederick unconscious on the ground. But he had no intention of killing Frederick in the first place. Zen could resist the powerful attack from the Soul Sea realm martial artists by combining the will of the world with his strength. But he was no match for those who already had domains. Once he was enveloped by a domain and the connection between him and the will of the world was severed, he simply wasn't a match for the Soul Sea realm martial artists. That was why he didn't want to anger War Emperor York too much. All the divine-level talents looked fearfully at Zen. They all knew that Zen was very strong. He had previously fought with Logan, Fiona, and the little monster in the arena. That was why they knew that Zen was strong, but none of them could tell how strong he exactly was. Now, they clearly understood how terrifying Zen's strength was. As long as he had enough space and time, Zen would be able to annihilate all the divine-level talents present there, with his strength alone. The gap was no longer just one realm, but 2 realms, even though Zen was only in the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm. He fainted, Zen said with a smile. "Let's wait for him to wake up." Fiona let out a light breath and said, "There's no need. It's only 9,000 life vitality crystals." It was a massive sum of money for Callan. Fiona was angry that her little brother had been tricked by Frederick and she just couldn't tolerate the insult. But when it came to true value, 9,000 Supreme Life Vitality crystals were nothing at all. Frederick had also paid a heavy price for those Life Vitality crystals. The Heavenly Thunder Halberd that he had used moments ago had an immeasurable value. Now, Fiona began to worry about Zen. He had already angered War Emperor York. If War Emperor York came to the Feather Emperor's secret land, would he directly attack Zen? If it really came to that, she would help Zen. If she stood out, her father would definitely support her. She had now made up her mind. It's time to mine, and as quickly as that, Zen put this matter at the back of his mind. He still had work to do. After absorbing so much heavenly essence and igniting over 10,000 dragon scales, he was to smash the golden leaf to pieces, take out the black star, and then move on to the top of the mine tree. But this was what he had assumed would happen. What would most likely happen was that he wouldn't be able to break open the golden leaf, and as a result, wouldn't be able to take out the pickaxe, which was a supreme divine weapon. Chapter 843, Blood Arrows. Under the fearful gazes of so many divine-level talents, Zen began climbing up the pyramid. He stopped at the 35th floor. Why is he going to the 35th floor? I don't know, but he seems to be going towards that narrow door. The golden leaf. His target is the black star pickaxe. It's a vain attempt. Does he have a way to take it out? A warrior who entered the special narrow door on the 35th floor would land at the middle of the tree, also the place where the golden leaf was. And within that leaf was a supreme divine weapon. This piece of information had been obtained from the Feather Holy See a long time ago, which meant that most of the martial artists in the 4 divine kingdoms were very clear on this. Everyone knew that there was a supreme divine weapon on the 35th floor, and it was a very strange pickaxe. But no one had been able to take it out. For so many years, many powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm had used many methods. But none of them had been able to break the light golden leaf and obtain the black star pickaxe. Zen, on the other hand, had just entered the 35th floor with full swagger. Could it be that he knew a way to break the light golden leaf? Zen had previously given the crowd the impression that he was capable of everything, which was why they had instinctively thought that it was possible for Zen to get the black star pickaxe. But it was a while before they shook their heads in denial, after considering the toughness of the job. It is impossible. If it were that easy to get the black star pickaxe, the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm would have obtained it a long time ago. Yes, you're right, I guess that is only trying it out there. But a supreme divine weapon is not ordinary. He can't take it away. This guy's brute force is very strong, but he has only managed to injure War Emperor York. He might not stand a chance to take out the black star pickaxe unless his strength increases tenfold. As the crowd discussed Zen's move among themselves, a few curious warriors even began climbing up the pyramid. The 35th floor was a bit dangerous for divine-level talents, but if they were to encounter the green mineral-devouring bugs, they could still escape in time. And as long as they didn't run into the purple mineral-devouring bugs, there wouldn't be any danger. The purple mineral-devouring bugs would usually stay on the 40th floor or above, and so far, only Zen had been able to attract them away from there once. So they thought it would be okay for them to go up there. Many martial artists entered the narrow doors on the 35th floor, as well as the doors below. And because only one warrior could pass through a narrow door at a time, a few brave ones even entered the narrow door on top of the one that Zen had entered. Standing on the light golden leaf, Zen looked up, down, and around him, and found that there were people everywhere. Zen was speechless at the scene. He was only going to break a leaf. What was there to look about? Did they have to make such a fuss, following him in and watching him? Zen didn't hide anything from them, especially not intentionally. He knew that taking the black star pickaxe would make a lot of noise and would be impossible for him to avoid being noticed. But he still didn't like being watched like this by so many people. Should I lure a purple mineral devouring bug down here and scare them away? Zen thought for a second, but gave up on the idea on second thought. If they wanted to watch him, then so be it. He took a few steps forward onto the light golden leaf and arrived on top of the black star pickaxe. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. After his body had become a sacred weapon, Zen wasn't sure just how much strength he could take on. He had planned to test out his strength the moment he had absorbed the heavenly essence but had been interrupted by Fiona. So he thought now would be a good time to test it out. From the moment he closed his eyes, Zen had been continuously absorbing the power from the dragon scales. He slowly absorbed the power of 1 dragon scale, then 10, then 100, and then 1,000. When his body had been a fairy weapon, it had only been able to take in the power of 1,000 dragon scales at most. If he had as much as tried to absorb more of that power at the time, his physical body could have collapsed. But now, Zen directly activated the power of 1,000 dragon scales, and then went on to 2,000. He could feel the terrifying power slowly flowing through his body, like streams of condensed body fluids that were crawling through his limbs and bones. His body could handle the power of 2,000 dragon scales. So he decided to try and activate more. 3,000. He had activated the power of 3,000 dragon scales. I can still handle it, he muttered to himself. Zen could feel every cell in his body swelling up. Each cell of his body contained a power that if poured out, would produce a terrifying effect, the exact repercussions of which even he couldn't place a finger on. He hadn't reached his limit yet. He could still handle it. Zen took another deep breath and activated the power of 4,000 dragon scales. Crack, 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 a violent crackling sound could be heard coming off the bones in Zen's body. Ever since Zen's physical body had reached the level of the mysterious weapon, his bones had rarely produced such sounds. This was because every part of his body had become incomparably tough. The sounds could only be heard when his joints swelled to their limits and could not bear any more pressure. Now that he had summoned such immensely intense power, every cell in Zen's body swelled once again. His body cells had now reached their limit. Look, Zen seems to have grown taller. His body seems to have doubled in size. How did he do that? I think his body is filled with power. There were a lot of warriors lying prostrate at the edge of the leaves around Zen to watch him. Some brave warriors focused all their attention on the changes in Zen's body. A few timid ones would occasionally look around to see if any mineral-devouring bugs were approaching. If they really came, they only needed to turn over to fall off the leaves and run for their lives. Is this my limit? It shouldn't be, Zen thought, frowning. He felt a burgeoning pain in every part of his body. He also felt restrained, as if he couldn't control the power of the 4,000 dragon scales. It looks like I have to refine my body again. But I haven't gathered enough primordial energy, he said to himself. Zen had refined his body once it had become a fairy weapon. But after Zen's body had become a sacred weapon, he hadn't had the chance to refine it. After all, the red dragon was still sleeping. Could the power of 4,000 dragon scales smash through this golden leaf? Zen frowned, hesitating. Not a chance. He quickly pushed that possibility aside. The powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm had thought of many ways to try and take the pickaxe out of the golden leaf. Although only one master could land on the golden leaf a time, there were many leaves around. Other masters at the Soul Sea realm could occupy the leaves surrounding the golden leaf. If they hadn't been able to destroy the golden leaf with a combined attack, Zen assumed that he probably wouldn't be able to break open the leaf with just the power of 4,000 dragon scales. 5,000. Zen didn't hesitate and continued to summon the power of more dragon scales. But Zen's body was racked with unbearable pain as the power of the 5,000 dragon scales erupted. The pain came from every cell in Zen's body, and the intensity was outrageous. This was unbearable. The state of forgetting myself. An idea suddenly struck him. Zen had employed a technique he had previously used. In the state of forgetting himself, Zen could temporarily forget about the pain of his body. In this state, it was as if it wasn't his body that was suffering the pain, but someone else's. The state of forgetting oneself, however, had its pros and cons, because pain was beneficial to the human body in some aspect. When pain came from the body, it was a signal to tell you that it was overloaded or that there was something wrong with it. If one couldn't feel the pain, it would only cause more damage to one's body. But right now, Zen had no choice. Since he had already made his decision, he would go all out. The power of 5,000 dragon scales surged into Zen's body. As every part of his body had swelled to the limit, the cracking sound stopped, but in the next moment, a wound suddenly appeared on Zen's chest. The sound of ripping cloth rent the air. A stream of blood burst out from Zen's chest like a blood arrow shooting out, cutting open his clothes. Zen's chest had been ripped open by the immense force, and blood was gushing out at an alarming rate, tearing his clothes to shreds. Pa, 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 pa. Soon after, blood arrows shot out from Zen's back, legs, and shoulders, to everyone's utter astonishment and shock. Chapter 844, Failed. How did Zen get injured? I haven't seen anyone attack him. It is indeed very strange what is going on with him. I have seen similar things before. When a martial artist absorbs too much power that his body is unable to withstand it, this is what happens. But Zen's body is so strong. What kind of power would make this happen to him? Zen gasped heavily, his expression betraying nothing. His body was on the verge of collapse. If he continued to increase the power of the dragon scales, his physical body might not be able to hold out against the strong pressure. Had the power of 5,000 dragon scales touched his limits? He took another step forward with great difficulty. Even though he had entered into a state of forgetting himself and couldn't feel the pain in his body from the pressure of this immense power, he was still a horrible sight to look at. Do I need to activate the power of 6,000 dragon scales? He wondered, a look of hesitation appearing on his face. However, he quickly gave up on this idea. Even though he had only taken one step forward, 3 to 4 blood arrows shot out from his body. Let me try this out with 5,000 dragon scales. Since he had already reached his limit, Zen wasn't foolish enough to try to activate the power of 6,000 dragon scales. If his physical body really collapsed, no one would be able to save him. Zen spread out his legs, his toes pointed and buttocks clenched. He stood firmly on the golden leaf, right above the spot where the pickaxe was located. Slowly, he clenched his fists. Puff, puff, puff. The power within Zen's body drifted into his arms, each of the pulses in his arms bulging out like little snakes. At the same time, blood arrows continued to erupt from his skin. In an instant, the sleeves on his arms had been torn apart by the blood arrows. Even so, he gritted his teeth and slowly raised his fist. Zen didn't dare use his life vitality or forceful energy. Now that Zen's body had been thoroughly activated to its limits, it could be that just a little more strength would be enough to disintegrate his body and cause his body to explode. Let me release all the power. Zen's fist landed on the light golden leaf with a profound impact. The speed of his strike wasn't fast. Since it contained such formidable power, he didn't need to increase the speed to boost his power. As his fist approached the leaf, the immense force from his body began to pour out onto it. Zen's body too began to shrink rapidly at this moment. Moments ago, his physical body had doubled in size. With his strength now released, it shrunk back to its normal size. Clang! A dull and heavy sound rang out. A few seconds after, the golden leaf began to sink. It stopped moving after being pushed down by about 10 feet. However, there were no signs to indicate that it was broken. The golden leaf, pressed down by 10 feet, was like a tightly drawn bowstring. In the next moment, it quickly rebounded, bouncing Zen into the air. Like a fish in a frying pan, Zen was thrown high into the air by the golden leaf. He flipped over and fell back on top of the golden leaf. The huge vibration quickly spread over the entire tree. Some warriors had been lying on the edge of the leaves in order to get a better view of Zen. The leaves vibrated violently, because of which they couldn't hold on to the edge of the leaves they were on. As a result, they straightaway fell off the leaves and into the light circles. He failed. Zen's power has shaken the entire mineral tree. His power is incredible. I'm afraid that even a mighty warrior of the Soul Sea realm could not have such terrifying power. It is such a pity. Although Zen and our York Divine Kingdom are not on good terms, I really look forward to him smashing this golden leaf and extracting the Black Star pickaxe. The many divine level talents fell silent, sporting disappointed looks on their faces. They didn't care if Zen could take out the Black Star pickaxe or not. But at the same time, they were shocked by Zen's move. Even the warriors of the York Divine Kingdom felt pity for him. Lying on the golden leaf, Zen panted heavily. Right now, he stepped out of the state of forgetting himself, clearly feeling the pain in every part of his body. He had failed. The power of the 5,000 dragon scales seemed not enough. It looked like the power of 6,000 of the dragon scales would not be sufficient, either. The golden leaf was supported by a root that was not so thick. Someone could not smash a leaf on the tree with a hammer because the stem of the leaf had a certain elasticity. This was also the reason why Zen had failed. The root of the tree was extremely tough, but it was its elasticity that had offset much of Zen's strength. If I want to smash this golden leaf, I'm afraid I will need the power of more than 10,000 dragon scales. I have already lit up 14,000, but my body is unable to withstand such power. What should I do? Zen was at a loss for the moment. Excruciating pain shot through Zen's body, but it was nothing compared to his dejected mood. Give up, Thad, the voice of Randy suddenly echoed. Randy had been standing on a leaf at the 33rd floor, 2 floors below the floor Zen was on. He faced the southeast direction, which was a good spot to watch over Zen. In fact, many of the martial artists outside had also entered, including Callan and Fiona. Fiona was quite far away from Zen. She sat quietly on a leaf of the 36th floor, her legs dangling over by the side. A look of pity reflected in her eyes as she followed Zen's every move. Hearing Randy's voice, Zen slowly stood up from the leaf. I'll help you get the life stones. Randy continued. The majority of the life stones excavated every year have been used, but there will still be some scattered around the 4 divine kingdoms. We can certainly collect some of them. As soon as Randy finished speaking, Fiona's voice came through. A little far away from them, she amplified her voice through her life vitality. My father still has some life stones. Thad, how many life stones do you need? I think if everyone gathers some, we should be able to achieve the number you need. Thad, I have gathered another 8 life stones. Camilla looked up at Zen as she spoke. She was the last to come into the pyramid and was now sitting on a leaf on the 32nd floor. Zen was glad of their warm words and kindness. Indeed, his main target was the life stones, which could be used to save Letitia's life. However, that did not mean that Zen's goal was only the life stones. He did not forget about the young man he had met in the ethereal spirit sect. Even though the man did not show the slightest hostility toward him or Yan, he understood that if he wanted to see Yan again, he would need to practice tens of thousands of times harder than others. That was also one of Zen's goals. Zen knew that if he advanced steadily, there would still be a long way to go in his life. There was a lot of time for him to grow, but Zen could not afford to waste a single second. He had to grow as fast as possible and challenge every peak he faced until he once again stood in front of that young man. Zen would not give up in the face of the light golden leaf and the black star pickaxe sealed within it. Thank you, Zen said faintly, pouring his life vitality into his voice. He said this to Randy, Fiona and Camilla, who had been so kind to offer their help. Zen sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes once again, trying to think of a way to break the leaf beneath his feet. His physical body was unable to withstand any more power. It seemed like a predicament with no solution in sight. Time passed by. The warriors on the leaves stared fixedly at Zen. The scene was dull as Zen now sat still doing nothing, but every martial artist seemed to harbor a lot of patience. It felt like a movie where the climax was incoming, although for the moment it was uninteresting. The audience still waited with bated breaths. They wanted to know what kind of solution Zen would come up with. There is no solution. He can't make it. For over 10,000 years, the powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm have received many ideas to solve this problem. They tried every possible way they could think of. None of them ever succeeded. It's true that Thad is a rare genius, but every warrior who has reached the Soul Sea realm is the best among all, another spectator commented. Chapter 845, Crack. Zen quietly sat on the golden leaf, his gaze becoming calmer and his mind becoming clearer as time ticked by. As of now, he was unable to unleash all his strength because of the limitations on his physical body. Right now, the most urgent thing was to push this limit. He pondered over it all. The power that came from the outside world was essentially the same as his own. If that was the case, he could transfer his own power. After obtaining the will of the world from the little monster, Zen was able to maintain a connection with everything in the great world. It could be a flower, a log, a mountain, or a sea. Everything Zen saw could be linked to him magically. He could connect to things he had never even seen before. This was because the memories of the entire world were firmly stored in Zen's psyche. He was now the spokesperson for this great world. He could feel the origin of the will of this great world. Certainly, he would explore it himself in future, but right now he had more important things to do. By transferring the power, Zen could take on immense strength while causing no damage to his own body, for another entity would replace him and absorb the strength. By the West Dragon River, Zen had taken on the punch from War Emperor York with the help of the mountains by the river. The vast feather Holy Sea had helped him block the heavenly thunder halberd from Frederick not so long ago. If he used the skill of power transfer, he could take on the power of 10,000 dragon scales, or even the power of 100,000 dragon scales. This way, the power that his body was supposed to consume would be borne by other things. However, the problem he was currently facing required a different solution. He now needed to pour all of his power into this light golden leaf. If he used the skill of power transfer, the power from the dragon scales would be transferred to somewhere else. Transfer. Thinking of this, Zen tapped his forehead at an important revelation. He had been too rigid in his way of thinking. It dawned on him that he could actually use this ability of power transfer in a different manner. Seeing Zen's behavior and his shining eyes, Randy's eyes flashed. He wondered if Zen had come up with any good ideas. Fiona blinked, a smile starting to form at the corner of her mouth. With Zen's intelligence, he truly might be able to find a way to solve this predicament. Suddenly, Zen rose. Standing on the top of the leaf, he took a deep breath. The power of dragon scales. The scales of the cyan dragon on the furnace began to emit a jade green light once again. The energy from them was like a tidal wave as it rushed into Zen's body. 100 dragon scales, 1000 dragon scales, 2000 dragon scales, 3000 dragon scales, 4000 dragon scales. Terrifying power gathered like a whirlpool in Zen's body. In the previous attempt while activating the power of the 4000 dragon scales, he had felt a considerable amount of pressure. Like last time, Zen's body swelled up once again, growing taller. Zen didn't hesitate at all and straightaway activated the power of the 5000 dragon scales. 6000 dragon scales, 7000 dragon scales, 8000 dragon scales, 9000 dragon scales. The number gradually soared. Last time when he had activated the power of 5000 dragon scales, Zen's physical body had neared its limits. It had been impossible to pour any more power into it. Otherwise, his body would have immediately collapsed. But this time, it sustained the power of 5000 dragon scales. Moreover, this power kept on increasing. He did not suffer any damage. Everyone, look, under Zen's feet, the golden leaf seems to be under a kind of great pressure. It is actually sinking. What is going on? Zen was merely standing on the leaf and had made it sink. Everyone knew how sturdy and firm the leaf was. Even if a dozen mountains were placed on top of it, they would be unable to break it even a little. But Zen was able to unleash such power by merely standing on it. Everyone around him was shocked. Zen's eyes revealed determination and became brighter by the second, as if a pair of stars were embedded in his pupils. 10,000 dragon scales, 11,000 dragon scales, 12,000 dragon scales. At the beginning, since Zen had been too eager to find a solution, he had forgotten a special characteristic of the power transfer. He had thought that he could not use the power transfer skill to activate more of the power of the dragon scales, for it could only be used to transfer the power he had to take onto other places of the great world. But then, another thought struck him. Since he could transfer the power to any other place, how about he made the mineral tree take on the power, right on this golden leaf? In other words, Zen's body had only taken on the power of 4000 dragon scales. And the power of the rest of them was diverted to this golden leaf. This was the reason why Zen's body wasn't on the verge of collapse this time, even though he had activated the power of more than 10,000 dragon scales. 13,000 dragon scales, 14,000 dragon scales. All dragon scales had finally been activated by Zen. The power of 10,000 of them had been fully applied onto this leaf, and the power of the remaining 4,000 had stayed inside Zen's body. The golden leaf was steadily sinking. Under such heavy pressure, it was on the brink of collapse and seemed to have reached its limit. It's about time, Zen thought. At this moment, he once again spread out his legs and began to gather the power in his body into his fists. The veins on his arms bulged out like little snakes. This time, Zen had already used up his full strength. If he could still not shatter this golden leaf, he would not give up. If he really failed, he could just ask Fiona to go with him to the arsenal, and he would devour those cursed weapons again. At the thought of this, Zen's fist smashed down on the golden leaf under him. The power of the 10,000 dragon scales had already been poured into the leaf. This time, Zen's forceful energy erupted out. At the same time, the power of 4,000 dragon scales inside his body surged forward. Bam! As his fists hit the golden leaf, a faint crack appeared on its surface. A crack. Zen's face broke into a small smile. The warriors watching him were stunned. He did it. Thad did it. Oh my goodness. The golden leaf that nobody could break for so many years has been shattered by Zen. Thad is too strong. The black star is just a pickaxe, but it's still a supreme divine weapon. It's a breakthrough. This really is extraordinary. Their faces were full of surprise as various thoughts ran through their heads. However, except for a few people, such as Randy, Fiona, and Camilla, they were unable to contain the envy and jealousy in their hearts. It was almost as if it was their first instinct to feel jealous, like it was something unavoidable. Those who had been looking forward to Zen smashing the golden leaf didn't feel the satisfaction they should have, for they had in fact wished that Zen would fail. Humans were such contradictory creatures. I'll strike it again, Zen thought. He bent down once again, both his fists slamming down onto the golden leaf. Bam! A second crack appeared on the surface of the golden leaf, extending from the bottom of the first crack. Things had been tough in the beginning. After the first crack appeared on the golden leaf, it became its weakest point. Zen didn't let up. He kept hitting the first crack to make it shatter. Bang! Boom! Bang! Zen's powerful strikes landed on the golden leaf one after another. More and more cracks became visible. At the sight of the cracks, Zen narrowed his eyes. Waves of life vitality rushed into his trembling fists. Soon after, the waves transformed into specks of starlight that enveloped Zen's body. Star shakes the earth. Smashed to pieces. Zen gritted his teeth and threw out his final punch. Boom, bang, they all heard the sharp, unmistakable sound of a crack. The golden leaf under Zen's feet cracked from the middle, and at the same time, the stems of the golden leaf broke apart. The black star pickaxe unveiled itself from beneath the tens of thousands of broken pieces. Chapter 846, The Robbery. The divine level talents could not remain calm when they saw the black star despite knowing they were no match for Zen. Several divine level talents would easily take a risk to obtain even an ordinary divine weapon. This was a supreme divine weapon after all. Even if they had to pay for it with their lives, they would still try to take it because the temptation was just too much. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 7 to 8 divine level talents shot out from the leaves in the 36th layer. Although they would be pulled down by an invisible force after they left the leaves, they were able to adjust their direction to a certain degree the moment they left the leaves. Of course, their target was the black star. It wasn't just the warriors in the 36th layer, but the ones in the 37th layer also jumped down and joined in the fight for the black star. The warriors in the 34th and 33rd layers were also waiting for the opportunity to take action. They were only waiting for the black star to fall before they would join the fray without hesitation. When the golden leaf was destroyed by Zen, all the fragments, including Zen and the pickaxe, were thrown into the air by the force of gravity. The next moment, they were all pulled back down by an invisible force. Thad, be careful, Randy, who stood on a leaf not far away, shouted out loud. He was still a fair distance away from Zen and was unable to reach him. All he could do from this distance was warn him. It was the same for Camilla and Fiona. Zen's face darkened when he saw the warriors rushing towards him. He had spent a great deal of effort getting this pickaxe. These guys sure knew how to take advantage of things. However, it wasn't so easy to take advantage of Zen. You want to rob me? You're courting death. Zen snorted derisively. Suddenly the soul pressure in his mind exploded. When he had released his soul pressure earlier, he had reserved some of it. Otherwise, with his soul fused with the world's will, it would have been impossible for these virtual tribulation realm warriors to even approach him. The black star was extremely important to Zen. He simply would not tolerate people trying to snatch it. Therefore, this time, Zen's soul pressure had erupted with full force. He was falling extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had fallen from the 35th layer to the 20th layer with the black star and the fragments of the golden leaf in tow. This was not a short distance from where Randy, Fiona, and the others were. But even though there were more than a dozen layers between them, when his soul pressure erupted, the faces of Randy, Fiona, and the other warriors, who hadn't left their leaves, turned deathly pale. His soul pressure is terrifying even from so far away. I'm afraid that Thad is truly enraged this time, Randy said with a light shudder. Camilla sneered from not too far away. Thad had to put his life on the line to break the leaf, yet these fellows have the gall to try to rob him. They're inviting their own deaths. No one can blame anybody. Fiona sat on the edge of a leaf and swung her legs. She was indifferent to the scene playing out in front of her. In the past, she would have tried to stop them. Those warriors might not be able to survive this kind of soul pressure. However, at this moment, the balance in her heart was completely tilted. In her mind, she was thinking, what Thad is doing is right. If you dare to snatch his black star, you deserve to die. Some warriors were still on their leaves. They were thanking their lucky stars that they didn't join the others in robbing Zen. They, too, had wanted to rush down and fight, but they were either too far away from Zen's leaf or they had restrained themselves. The warriors who had wisely decided to not give in to their impulse felt very happy that they were far away from the eruption. There was probably no one at the virtual tribulation realm who could survive this soul pressure eruption. They could feel the force of Zen's soul pressure even from this distance. More than 10 divine level talents were chasing after the black star and were only 10 to 20 feet away from Zen, with the closest one being only 10 feet away. He had already reached out his hand to grab the black star, but he couldn't move forward even an inch. It was as if time had stopped at that moment. They were instantly killed by Zen's soul pressure. Traces of blood flowed from their mouths, noses, ears and eyes. As they fell, the blood continued spilling out. No one could feel any life energy in their bodies. Zen and the black star landed in a ring of light at the bottom, followed by the divine level talents. On one side of the pyramid, rings of light flashed constantly. Zen stood firmly in the crater he had created earlier while the black star was nailed to the ground. After a few seconds, the rings of light above Zen's head started flickering non-stop, and one by one, the corpses fell heavily to the ground. Crash, thud, splat, the corpses of the divine level talents rained down around Zen. He stood in the middle of the crater with his hand on the black star, like a god of death. Not all divine level talents had entered the mine, as one leaf could only hold one warrior at a time. Besides, if warriors were too far away from Zen's leaf and their vision was blocked, then they wouldn't be able to figure out what had happened. The divine level talents outside the pyramid, who were watching this scene unfold, were all terrified and cautious at the same time. Could it be that Zen had gone berserk and was frantically slaughtering the divine level talents? If that was really the case, no one here was capable of stopping him. He has killed so many people. Why would Zen kill them? What is that thing in his hand? That seems to be. If I'm not wrong, it is the black star that was buried in the golden leaf in the 35th layer. How did he get his hands on it? When the divine level talents outside the pyramid noticed the black star, they completely forgot about the corpses on the ground. Killing some divine level talents was nothing, but obtaining the black star was incredible. This was not something they could imagine. Even though the pickaxe was wrapped in a leaf, who had the ability to take it? This question had once been asked by the warriors of the 4 divine kingdoms. Now, the answer was obvious. It was Zen. He walked out of the crater with the black star in his hand. He wasn't thinking about those people. All of Zen's attention was focused on the pickaxe in his hand. He didn't care about the divine level talents present at all, as they were no match for him. Meanwhile, the rings of light in the mine slowly faded away. Randy smiled and said, "Let's go out and take a closer look." After Randy took his step first, the other warriors also followed. They all jumped off the leaves and started falling down. Bram, the crown prince of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, had a smile on his face. Zen had exceeded his expectations long ago, and he could keep doing it over and over again. Previously, Bram had been insecure of Randy's strength and had started to suppress him. He had always held the absolute advantage, but now, because of Zen alone, Bram would probably be suppressed by Randy, and he wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. However, in the end, Randy and Bram were brothers. Perhaps there was no need for them to compete against each other like this. Bram looked relieved, and he also left the leaf. Everyone went back outside the pyramid while Zen stood nearby with the pickaxe in his hand. He was frowning slightly. Zen couldn't figure out what material the pickaxe was made of. Even after he turned it in his hand over and over again and examined it closely, he still couldn't see anything special about it. Is this really the so-called supreme divine weapon? It doesn't look extraordinary at all. Whether it was the semi-divine weapon on Fiona's arm or Frederick's heavenly thunder halberd, the momentum and might contained within them were incomparable to a normal sacred weapon. Apart from its extremely tough material, Zen couldn't see how the black star was similar to a divine weapon. And this was not just a normal divine weapon, it was a supreme divine weapon. Chapter 847, The Master of the Black Star. Every one of these divine level talents was openly staring at Zen. They could hardly hide the greed in their eyes. But remembering the corpses lying in the crater vividly as if they were implanted in their minds, they held themselves in check. Stealing the pickaxe in Zen's hand. That was not taking a risk at all. But instead, that was pure suicide. Thus everyone decided that they could only keep a certain distance from him and watch from afar. Zen quietly observed the black star in his hand. It was short in length, almost looking like a small hammer. He tried gauging its weight as he scanned its body for any markings. But no matter what he did, he still couldn't figure out why it ranked as a supreme divine weapon. He was completely clueless. Does this pickaxe need life vitality to activate? A strand of life vitality abruptly appeared in Zen's hand as he thought of this, and he poured it eagerly into the pickaxe. Fundamentally, life vitality could easily invade a weapon. But he could faintly feel that this pickaxe was extremely resistant to life vitality. I should use my perception to explore it. Then he started utilizing his spiritual perception to scrutinize the divine weapon. But every time he came into contact with the black star, he was also being blocked out by an invisible force. Do I need to put a drop of my blood onto it so that I'll become its master? Zen blinked his eyes as he mused what to do next. Then he suddenly flicked his finger, causing a drop of blood to spurt out. He aimed it immediately at the pickaxe, but it missed, falling to its side. It seemed to him that the weapon had some invisible force, not allowing the blood to touch its surface. What? He cried out, confused. Inspecting the black star thoroughly, he couldn't help feeling as if he had entered a mountain of treasures but left empty-handed. There was nothing he could do about it. Sighing helplessly, he casually gazed at the divine-level talents in the distance. No one dared to approach him at this time, and he couldn't count on a method from their mouths. Just as Zen was at a loss, a faint voice resounded in his mind, "Ha ha. Black Star, this is a supreme divine weapon. I knew that it was buried in the earth tree, but I didn't expect you to actually take it out." It was the voice of the Cyan Dragon. "You're awake." Surprise appeared on Zen's face. He had initially thought that the Cyan Dragon would be sleeping for a long time. "I sensed this supreme divine weapon, so I woke up," said the Cyan Dragon in a voice that revealed a hint of exhaustion. Zen was in frustration, but a sudden realization hit him as he listened to the Cyan Dragon's words. It seemed like he knew a lot about this mine as well as the Black Star. Glee was written all over Zen's face as he said, "I don't seem to be able to use this pickaxe." The Cyan Dragon chuckled heartily and replied, "It will be strange if you can use a supreme divine weapon as soon as you obtain it." "Then what should I do?" Zen asked quickly. The dragon lineage human was a branch of the genuine dragon, and the members were half dragon and half human. The Cyan Dragon was one of the super legendary beasts of the genuine dragon world, making him a genuine dragon. If even he did not know how to use the Black Star, then it would be even more impossible for the others to know. "I'll teach you how to become its master," the Cyan Dragon assured him in a relaxed manner. "Is it easy?" Zen inquired. "If you follow my instructions, it won't be too hard," the Cyan Dragon reassured. Zen heaved a long sigh of relief at the Cyan Dragon's words. He was currently in the territory of the 4 divine kingdoms. And according to Randy, those Soul Sea Realm masters still had to come to the Feather Emperor's secret land to catch mineral-devouring bugs in the hope of taking the soul cores from them. If he couldn't become the master of the Black Star, those emperors would definitely take it away from him. "Do you see the 3 divine textures on the pickaxe?" The Cyan Dragon probed. "As long as you activate these 3 10-star divine textures, you will be able to become the master of the Black Star." Zen nodded. The 3 10-star divine textures on the Black Star had no relation to the human race, they were passed down by the genuine dragon. Before this, Zen had also thought of the possibility of becoming the pickaxe's master by activating the 3 10-star divine textures. That was why he earnestly tried to pour his life vitality into the Black Star. However, the pickaxe didn't have the slightest reaction. Zen had no other choice but to feel defeated at that time. "All you need to do is draw these divine textures in the opposite order," the Cyan Dragon confided with a smile. "Draw these divine textures in the opposite order?" Astonishment appeared on Zen's face as he queried, "It can't be that they're also 10-star divine textures, right?" With Zen's current soul force, he could only draw 5-star divine textures at the most. And drawing a 6-star divine texture was already hard on his part. What more for a 10-star divine texture? He didn't even dare to think about it. The Cyan Dragon replied blandly, "Ha ha. If they were all 10-star divine textures, there probably aren't many living beings in this world that could become the master of the Black Star. Imagine it yourself. You'll understand once you draw these divine textures in the opposite order." "Really?" Zen raised an eyebrow, and the 3 10-star divine textures entered his vision. After that, a look of amazement appeared on his face. "These are actually 3 1-star divine textures when being drawn in the opposite order. And they are the meditation divine textures I used in practice when I started cultivating divine textures." The reverse version of the 10-star divine textures was surprisingly 3 1-star divine textures. Zen had no idea if this was a coincidence, or if the runic expert who designed these divine textures was doing it on purpose. Yes, however, there are too few people who know of this secret. Even if someone took the pickaxe away, it would be impossible for him to become its master as he didn't know the secrets behind it, the Cyan Dragon remarked. Zen nodded, and then hastily said, "I got it. I'll do it now." Zen couldn't wait any longer as excitement burst within him. Grabbing the pickaxe, he swept his gaze at the warriors around. When he was sure that everyone's eyes were focused on him, he laughed coldly as he suddenly swung the pickaxe, smashing it down towards the ground. The hardness of the Black Star was seemingly quite not ordinary, considering that he was not yet its master. He swiftly jumped into the pit he dug in the ground as he released his life vitality to cover his surroundings. He only needed 3 1-star divine textures to unravel the 10-star divine textures on the Black Star. There were divine textures inheritances within the 4 divine kingdoms, and there were also divine texture experts lurking around, so he didn't want this secret to be leaked out. At the bottom of the pit, Zen conscientiously took out some materials and deftly crafted some ink. The level of difficulty of creating 1-star divine textures wasn't that high, and Zen had enough materials at hand. He finished preparing the rest of the materials he needed with ease. After he laid out a piece of paper, he extracted a strand of his soul from between his eyebrows and connected it with the runic pen in his hand. With Zen's current foundation, creating a 1-star divine texture required no effort at all. So to speak, after about 3 minutes, the 3 meditation divine textures were all ready. He held the 3-star divine textures in his hands while he compared them with the 10-star divine textures engraved on the shaft of the black star. Indeed, if one were to draw these 1-star divine textures in the opposite order, it would be equivalent to drawing the lines of these 10-star divine textures. He had initially thought that the composition of a 10-star divine texture would be very complicated, but now it seemed that it was far from what he had imagined. The greatest truths were the simplest of all. They reached the same goal by different means. And now, Zen asked, use your life vitality to activate these 1-star divine textures and then register them onto the pickaxe, the cyan dragon answered. Following the instructions given by the cyan dragon, Zen carefully imprinted a 1-star divine texture onto the pickaxe. The moment he did so, one of the 3 10-star divine textures on the black star suddenly glowed with light. Zen didn't ask anything more as he appreciated the soft glow. He continued to imprint the 2nd divine texture onto it, and the 3rd one after that. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The black star was finally activated. A magnificent color appeared on the surface of the pickaxe, like a layer of oil being poured into water. So beautiful, Zen praised. Don't celebrate so soon. Put a drop of your blood onto the pickaxe. But let me remind you, this is a supreme divine weapon. It has its own will and will judge its master, and not everyone can be recognized as a master by it, the cyan dragon explained. Got it, Zen nodded. After working so hard for so long, even if he really couldn't become its master, Zen would accept it graciously. After all, he had done his best. Like before, Zen flicked his finger, and a drop of blood fell towards the black star again. He understood that if he really couldn't become its master, then that would be his fate. He was no longer in a position to control the situation, but amidst that, he still stared at the drop of blood with great anticipation and with a nervous expression on his face. Chapter 848, Unique Law of Causality. The drop of blood fell on the black star pickaxe but did not seep into it. However, it did not fall down or get repelled by the pickaxe either. It was slowly crawling on the pickaxe like a small insect. Will it work? Zen stared at it nervously. The drop of blood slowly slid from the top part of the pickaxe, moving all the way down. Zen's eyes followed it as it slowly inched downward. As the drop of blood continued rolling downwards, Zen's heart began to sink. It didn't look like this was going to work. He was starting to lose all hope when the drop of blood gently swayed and then suddenly split apart. It spread out on the pickaxe and then got completely absorbed in it. I succeeded. Zen was ecstatic. Soon after, he felt like he had established some sort of connection with the black star pickaxe. It felt like the bond between flesh and blood. Zen had experienced this feeling before. Back when he had condensed the sword spirit, he felt that his soul and that of the sword spirit were connected. But the difference here was that Lavender, the sword spirit, had her own soul and thoughts, while the black star pickaxe didn't have a mind of its own. Its consciousness was only used to identify its master, so it was a simpler form. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly a dazzling light burst out from the 3 divine textures on the black star pickaxe. It pierced right through Zen's life vitality and soared into the sky. What's happening in the pit? Who knows? Who has the courage to go over and take a look? Obviously Thad did all this to keep us from finding out what he's up to. Now whoever goes there will be courting death. I don't dare to go there. If I were to go over there, he would definitely kill me. The corpses of the divine level talents, who had tried to take the black star pickaxe from Zen, served as reminders of what lay in store for those who dared to approach the pit. After the light dissipated, Zen climbed out of the pit with the black star pickaxe and a smile on his face. In his mind, he was communicating with the cyan dragon. Does this black star pickaxe have any special abilities? Zen didn't know what a supreme divine weapon could do, but judging from the fact that a mere semi-divine divine weapon like Fiona's jade bracelet was so powerful, he assumed that the supreme divine weapon would have extraordinary powers. The abilities of the black star pickaxe. The cyan dragon replied, this is a pickaxe. What abilities do you expect it to have? It can dig anything out. Zen was stunned at these words. Just this. Isn't that enough? Don't look at it as a weapon. Though it's a pickaxe, it's an extraordinary one, added the cyan dragon. Zen's heart sank. What was this? When he had seen the 3 10-star divine textures on the black star pickaxe, he had high expectations from it. That was why he had worked so hard to obtain the black star pickaxe. It was a supreme divine weapon after all. Although it was just a mining pickaxe, it could still be used as a weapon. At least that was what Zen thought. He couldn't believe that the pickaxe could only be used for digging. Seeing Zen's disappointed face, the Cyan Dragon slowly explained to him, "Don't underestimate the Black Star Pickaxe. The supreme divine weapon contains the unique law of causality. There is hardly anything it can't break." The law of causality. Lavender had also mentioned it to him before. A chill went down his spine and his face became more serious. The law of causality was extremely powerful. Zen clearly remembered Eddie's life and death wind. Anyone who was hit by the life and death wind would instantly die as it contained the law of causality. Life and death corresponded to cause and effect. It was impossible for anyone to resist the law of causality. Yes, and the law of causality in the supreme divine weapon is unique, that is how it earned its title, said the Cyan Dragon. So what is the cause and what's the effect in this supreme divine weapon? Inquired Zen. The Cyan Dragon thought for a moment before replying. The cause is the Black Star Pickaxe itself, and the effect is its ability to dig anything out. As it's a supreme divine weapon whose function is to dig something, it can break everything. Zen couldn't help but roll his eyes at this. What kind of a lame law of causality was this? In the end, it was still just about digging. The Cyan Dragon probably wasn't satisfied with his own explanation, but the fact remained that the Black Star Pickaxe was indeed a very special tool. The weapon refiner who made this pickaxe had created it with the intention of making it the most powerful pickaxe in the universe. He had never intended it to be a weapon. But as per what the Cyan Dragon had said, the law of causality contained in this Black Star Pickaxe wasn't that bad. Since it could break anything, all defenses against the pickaxe would be ineffective. Sadly, this tool was only a pickaxe, not a sharp sword. If this supreme divine weapon were a sword that contained the law of causality to break anything, no one would be able to block its attack. It was all wishful thinking because the truth remained that it was merely a pickaxe, and there had never been any pickaxe techniques since ancient times. Disappointed as Zen was, he didn't want to waste any more time dwelling on it. He had taken a lot of effort to obtain this Black Star Pickaxe, and his purpose of doing this was to break the leaves on the top floors. Since this tool could break anything, it would not be difficult to break the leaves on the 45th floor and the floors above. The Black Star Pickaxe contained the law of causality, so no matter how hard the leaves were, they could not resist the pickaxe. Keeping this in mind, Zen decided to take out the life crystals first. However, before he could climb up the pyramid, dozens of rays of light rapidly shot down from the sky. The Feather Holy Sea was still influenced by the power of blood sacrifice, which made it difficult for warriors at Virtual Tribulation Realm to fly. If these warriors were able to fly directly above the sky of Feather Holy Sea and maintain such a high speed, they must be the mighty warriors at Soul Sea Realm. If Zen's guess was correct, this would be the group of mighty warriors of Soul Sea Realm from the Divine Kingdoms, including Turner, War Emperor York, Scott and War King Wind. All of them arrived at once. Being mighty warriors of the Soul Sea Realm, they would certainly not be interested in ordinary ores. As they could not break the leaves on the 45th floor and beyond, they were here to catch the mineral-devouring bugs in the mineral tree. They would not kill them all. The mineral-devouring bugs would lay eggs on the roots of the tree, and new bugs would hatch every year. They had pinned their hopes on the mineral-devouring bugs. They expected these bugs to devour the soul cores so that they could extract the soul cores before they were completely digested. Over 20 powerful masters at the Soul Sea Realm landed at the bottom of the pyramid. War Emperor York was the first one to arrive, and as soon as his feet hit the ground, several divine-level talents of the York Divine Kingdom carried over the unconscious Frederick to him. When War Emperor York saw that Frederick was weak and unconscious, his face instantly darkened. What was going on? He thought to himself. No one from the 4 Divine Kingdoms ever dared to offend the Crown Prince of York Divine Kingdom. What happened to my son? Why does his soul feel so weak? Who did this? Who harmed Frederick's soul? War Emperor York demanded menacingly. If an ordinary divine-level talent's soul was harmed, it would be a problem. However, for the Crown Prince of a Divine Kingdom, it was no big deal. The York Divine Kingdom's heritage was far beyond that of ordinary sects or noble clans. War Emperor York was just incensed that someone had dared to injure Frederick. To put it bluntly, this Divine Kingdom continent belonged to the 4 royal families of the 4 Divine Kingdoms. The entire continent was like the backyard of these 4 families. The Crown Prince of Lu Clan was knocked unconscious in his own backyard. Who on this continent dared to challenge the authority of the royal family? When the War Emperor York asked the question, he already knew the answer. No one on the continent would dare to do so, except for Zen. There still was a small possibility that it might not be him because Zen had a violent fight with him once and he spared Zen's life because Turner and several others persuaded him to spare his life. So he assumed Zen would not offend him further. And if he did, he knew he was inviting death. A divine-level talent of the York Divine Kingdom looked at the furious War Emperor York and shuddered. He replied meekly, "Your Majesty, it's Zen." His soul pressure did this to the Crown Prince. War Emperor York took a step forward and reached out to his son. He put his hand in Frederick's robes and removed a necklace. The ornament looked feminine. The gem in the necklace had been completely shattered and its color had faded. War Emperor York clenched his teeth as he looked at Zen and yelled, "Zen! Kneel down before me and await your death." Although this heart condensation necklace was a top-grade sacred weapon, its value was equal to that of a semi-divine weapon. Now it was broken, and this made War Emperor York furious. Standing at the edge of the pyramid, Zen blinked and said calmly, "If I really wanted to die, why would I kneel down in front of you?" Chapter 849, The Feud. War Emperor York did not want to argue with Zen. He was a king and Zen was merely a virtual Tribulation Realm warrior. It undermined his dignity to argue with the young man. He knew that he could not kill Zen with his own strength alone. Since the boy had stolen the little monster's power, he could transfer his power to other things as he pleased. However, this was not something that didn't have a solution. Zen was on his territory now. War Emperor York could sever his connection with the great world easily. In his domain, he was the one who made the rules. Zen was only a sitting duck. Turner frowned. He wanted to stop them before the situation got worse, but he hesitated to do so. He was calm and fair, but it looked like Thad was in the wrong here. In the blink of an eye, War Emperor York drew himself closer to Zen. However, before he could even touch Zen, a figure appeared in front of the young man. The newcomer wasn't Lord Randy, but Fiona. She stood in front of Zen with a solemn expression, the jade bracelet around her arm quivering. When Fiona rushed over to Zen, Callan too came to stand before Zen. "Back off," War Emperor York roared. He was trying to hold in his temper knowing that Fiona was the princess of the Wind Divine Kingdom and Callan its prince. If they had been any other divine-level talents, regardless of which divine kingdom they came from, he would have killed them both then and there. "Callan, Fiona, what are you doing?" When War King Wind saw Callan and Fiona come to stand before Zen, he immediately became anxious. He did not know why his kids were getting involved when War Emperor York was in the midst of his infamous fury. "Thad injured Frederick. He stood up for us." War Emperor York, instead of blaming Thad, "You should have educated your son." Fiona was a naive and romantic woman, but that didn't mean she was timid. On the contrary, it was because she was naive that she had an earnest attitude. She considered Frederick to be in the wrong in this matter, which was why she spoke in such a righteous and reasonable manner in front of War Emperor York. But he didn't want to reason with her. He had always wanted to get rid of Zen as soon as possible, and Frederick was his best excuse. Humph! A force swept over Fiona and Callan with a flick of War Emperor York's hand. He wished to push them aside, but just as his power was about to reach them, War King Wind came to stand beside Fiona. In his hands appeared a brown fire shield. When the fire shield and War Emperor York's invisible power crashed into each other, an intense flame burst out and the shield destroyed War Emperor York's force. "Lucian, at least listen to the kids first before you get angry," War King Wind said grimly. He understood what had happened from what Fiona said. Fiona never lied. Thad had helped out his children and that was when he injured Frederick. That was to say, Frederick had taken advantage of his children. Wind. War Emperor York was filled with rage. The last time he tried to kill Zen, Turner had stopped him. This time, War King Wind was holding him back. Why was Zen so fortunate? Seeing that War King Wind had stepped forward, Turner walked up to them. "Wind is right," he said to War Emperor York. "If there's a problem among the kids, let them make it clear." Even though Turner was polite, he stood by War King Wind's side. Clearly, he was trying to stop War Emperor York. With these two people urging him, War Emperor York felt somewhat helpless. He could only wait and see how the situation unfolded. Meanwhile, War King Wind turned to Fiona and said, "Fiona, tell us what happened." Fiona nodded and told him everything that had occurred before. War King Wind frowned as he heard that Frederick had taken life vitality crystals from Callan with a trick. On the other hand, War Emperor York was embarrassed. Who would have thought that a dignified Divine Kingdom Crown Prince would do this sort of thing for 9,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals? It was truly shameful. Obviously, he had done it because he thought Callan was too honest. It was an act of a bully. Although War King Wind had been focusing on Fiona all the time, Callan was, after all, the crown prince of the Wind Divine Kingdom. What Frederick had done to him was outrageous. After hearing what Fiona said, War King Wind turned to War Emperor York. Lucian, it sounds like everything happened because of Frederick. Zen injured him, but that was something he brought upon himself. Don't you agree? Turner laughed as well. I think so too. Lucian, your son is a real piece of work. He could have just returned the life vitality crystals after being exposed. But he didn't do so. Isn't it a little? It was on the tip of his tongue that Frederick was foolish and irresponsible, but he managed to stop himself from spilling out the words. But my son was injured for nothing. The heart condensation necklace and the heavenly thunder halberd are priceless treasures. Someone must pay the price for them. The reality that Frederick couldn't manage to harm Zen even after using the heavenly thunder halberd left War Emperor York deeply dejected. Turner did not respond to this accusation, but War King Wind's face darkened. Price. Lucian, all these years you've been getting more and more unreasonable. Your son has always bullied my son. Shouldn't he pay the price as well? I let it go, but I can't believe you're trying to twist the facts here. Do you actually think that York Divine Kingdom is above all the others? War King Wind was not as good-tempered as Turner. Besides, Fiona was the apple of his eye. When she had spoken earlier, he had been quick to figure out that his daughter had been mistreated and that Thad had stood up for her. Even in his presence, Lucian was biased against Fiona. It pissed him off. Wind, you. War Emperor York was too furious to finish his sentence. War King Wind snorted dismissively, not bothering to pay attention to Lucian. If it weren't for the fact that the four divine kingdoms had been living harmoniously with each other for so many years, he would have acted out on the spot. The development of the York Divine Kingdom in the recent years had indeed been impressive, but that was because of the martial artists of the younger generation. The Soul Sea Realm warriors of the various divine kingdoms had hardly seen any growth. If things got ugly, Lucian would not emerge the victor against War King Wind or Turner. War King Wind turned to Zen and smiled. Thad, you did a good job. As long as I am here, no one will dare touch you. Otherwise, be sure that they will be courting death. The words were heartless and cold. A smile crept across Zen's mouth as he nodded. Thank you. You're welcome. I should thank you on behalf of Fiona. War King Wind sized Zen up. The more he looked him over, the more satisfied he was. Zen did not want to extend his stay any longer. I have to go and mine. Please excuse me, he said to Turner and War King Wind. Zen had been holding onto the Black Star pickaxe, which had previously looked too ordinary from afar. It was just like a black hammer. However, when Zen turned around, the gazes of the Soul Sea Realm warriors latched onto the pickaxe in his hand. Lucian, Turner, War King Wind, and Scott all had puzzled expressions on their faces. The pickaxe in Zen's hand seemed a bit familiar to them. In fact, these leaders had studied the Black Star pickaxe numerous times and tried to extract it, so they all had deep impressions of it in their minds. They had assumed that nobody could retrieve the Black Star pickaxe. Who could do so, if they, the strongest Soul Sea Realm warriors, couldn't? So even though the pickaxe in Zen's hand looked familiar to them, they didn't immediately recognize it. Not in 100 years would they have imagined that Zen would be able to get the Black Star pickaxe. Lucian stared at the pickaxe gloomily. His eyes glistened as they landed on the 3 10-star divine textures on its head. Black Star pickaxe, in Zen's hands. What is going on? The other Soul Sea Realm warriors all wondered simultaneously. Chapter 850, War King's Anger. They weren't sure that the pickaxe in Zen's hand was the Black Star that had been sealed within the golden leaf. War Emperor York was the first to react among them. A divine-level talent of the York Divine Kingdom was quick to react. When he saw that many of the Soul Sea Realm warriors had zeroed in on Zen, he immediately sent Lucian a voice message through Life Vitality. Lucian had his own suspicions when he saw the black pickaxe, but he couldn't be sure. He could not believe that Zen had retrieved the Black Star pickaxe. However, after the divine-level talent's reminder to him, his doubts were replaced by eagerness. Before the many powerful warriors at the Soul Sea Realm could react, War Emperor York's figure flashed. Instantly, he was beside Zen. He was so fast that by the time Turner and War King Wind realized what had happened, the pickaxe was already in his possession. A look of ecstasy crossed his face. Zen stood on the edge of the pyramid and looked faintly at the overjoyed War Emperor York. He almost rolled his eyes. He didn't resist War Emperor York. The pickaxe wouldn't have been taken away so easily from him if he had put up a fight. If Zen had used the power of the 4,000 dragon scales, War Emperor York would have been unable to snatch the weapon from him. However, there was a large chasm between Zen's strength and that of War Emperor York's. Zen didn't want to anger the ruler too much and force him to attack him. In any case, the supreme divine weapon had already acknowledged Zen as its master. War Emperor York might have managed to get his hands on it, but it would be of no use to him. Black Star Pickaxe. It's really Black Star Pickaxe. The War Emperor York's face betrayed a euphoric expression as he laughed out loud. A lot of treasures were hidden within the leaves of the top 3 layers of the tree. Soul Core, in particular, was extremely critical to the 4 divine kingdoms. Up until now, they could only place their hopes on the mineral-devouring bugs, but those bugs rarely climbed up to the top to eat the ores. If War Emperor York possessed the pickaxe, he would be able to mine the leaf at the top. Is it really the Black Star Pickaxe? How was it taken out? Did Thad dig it out of the leaf on the 35th layer? How did he do it? Many of the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm had tried to extract the Black Star Pickaxe without success. It came as a shock to them that the pick was truly the Black Star. Some of them were just tongue-tied. Was it really Thad who dug it out? War King Wind asked Fiona. Fiona nodded. That's right, we saw it with our own eyes. Zen crushed the golden leaf on the 35th layer. How did he do it? War King Wind was regretful. If he had known about this earlier, he would not have gone to the mysterious Dream Secret Land earlier this year. Instead, they would have come straight to the Feather Emperor Secret Land. He had missed out on a good show, but what was worse was that the Black Star Pickaxe had fallen into the hands of War Emperor York. York Divine Kingdom had used the little monster to deter the other 3 divine kingdoms in the past. It wasn't great for the Black Star Pickaxe to fall into the hands of War Emperor York. Turner frowned as well. Zen was from the Harlan Divine Kingdom after all. How could Lucian snatch the pickaxe away from him just like that? Turner approached the pyramid, all the while keeping his eyes on Lucian. Lucian, as the king of a divine kingdom, aren't you ashamed to steal something from a young lad, your junior? Ashamed, humph. Turner, don't tell me you don't want it. War Emperor York couldn't rein in on his excitement as he held the Black Star Pickaxe. Even the silent Zen became endearing in his eyes. The grudge he held against Zen seemed to have vanished completely. Heavenly Thunder Halberd and the Heart Condensation Necklace were nothing compared to this Black Star Pickaxe. The heart condensing gem in the heart condensation necklace had been retrieved from the abdomen of a purple mineral-devouring bug. As long as War Emperor York had this Black Star Pickaxe in his possession, he would be able to collect the heart condensing gems every year. More importantly, with the Black Star Pickaxe, he could mine the soul cores at the top of the tree as he pleased. Even now, there were many powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm eagerly waiting their chance to get the soul cores. But this pickaxe was dug out by Thad. It belongs to him. Seeing the scene before her, Fiona couldn't hold her tongue any longer. There was even a trace of anger in her voice. War Emperor York ignored her and continued to gaze at the Black Star Pickaxe. Just as when Zen had obtained it, he finally realized that he couldn't control the pickaxe. In the past few minutes itself, War Emperor York had tried a variety of methods to bring it under his control. Pouring his life vitality onto it, dripping his blood on it, the soul imprint, the sensory perception force. The Black Star Pickaxe was tossed and turned in the hands of War Emperor York, but none of the methods seemed to work. Zen sported a mocking expression on his face. He looked at War Emperor York, then smiled at Fiona. Fiona, don't worry, the pickaxe is meant to be mine. No one can steal it from me. Fiona's bright eyes blinked as a smile surfaced on her face. Just now, Zen had set up a huge pit, isolating himself from the outside world. She guessed he had perhaps made the Black Star Pickaxe recognize him as its master in there. No one knew how Zen had managed to do it. However, War Emperor York seemed visibly frustrated about the weapon. After a while, his expression grew glum. He could do nothing about the pickaxe. He had heard Zen's words. War Emperor York turned to look at him, shouting, Zen. Did you make this pickaxe recognize you as its master? The gazes of the other kingdom leaders were locked on Zen as well. Turner and War King Wind would be glad of it if Zen were to be the true master of the Black Star Pickaxe. Scott said nothing and was neutral. Zen smiled faintly and nodded. Yes, what of it? Tell me how you did it. Otherwise, make no mistake, I will take your life. War Emperor York did not know how Zen had managed to get the Black Star Pickaxe to recognize him as its master. He had to wring it out of him. Zen laughed at this. How interesting. I dug out this Black Star Pickaxe from the golden leaf, and it has recognized me as its master. But you stole it from me. Now you expect me to tell you how it recognized its master. Are you deluded? You are a sovereign of a divine kingdom. Your shamelessness is appalling. For a moment, War Emperor York's facial expression was neutral. After all, this supreme divine weapon was far too important. After thinking about it for quite a while, he seemed to hesitate. Should he just attack Zen? Wind and Turner would never condone it. Threatening wouldn't work on Zen. After thinking for a while, he said, "Tell me the method to make the pickaxe recognize me as its master, and York Divine Kingdom will fulfill your wishes for the rest of your life. York Divine Kingdom can even groom you. We will spare no resources. All of the martial houses and secret training grounds will be open to you." Intimidating him would be of no use. The only option War Emperor York had was to tempt him. Hearing this, Turner couldn't help but roll his eyes. Was Lucian foolish enough to think that Zen was born yesterday? Harlan Divine Kingdom could already give Zen whatever York Divine Kingdom promised him. There wouldn't be too much of a difference in resources. How could War Emperor York expect Zen to renounce a supreme divine weapon for what he was promising? "Lucian, give it back to Zen," Turner said. "Since the Black Star pickaxe has already accepted its owner, we can get Zen to help us mine the soul cores." "Humph, I, a dignified War Emperor, need the help of a young fellow." Lucian snorted, extremely reluctant to return the pickaxe. Boom! Flames burst out from beneath the feet of the fuming War King Wind, each flame transforming into a nimble fire bird. The fire birds hovered around him. This was War King Wind's domain, the firebird. "You may not need Zen's help, but we do. All these years, we have tolerated you, while you have become more and more insufferable. I would rather leave this Black Star pickaxe in the hands of an outsider than let you have it. Lucian, return the Black Star pickaxe to Zen at once or we fight." This time, War King Wind was truly enraged. Chapter 851, Resigned to Fate. The other three divine kingdoms had always tolerated the York Divine Kingdom because of the secret sect and the little monster. But on the whole, the four great divine kingdoms had been harmonious with each other all these years as they were under the control of the humans of the upper world. The whole divine kingdom continent seemed like a joint force. Now War King Wind lost his temper because he could no longer stand Lucian's behavior. Of course, it was also because of Fiona. He had figured out that she was actually very concerned about Zen. This time he must be really angry. He means serious business. This is the second time. It's been a long time since the four divine kingdoms had a conflict. Will War Emperor York take action? A wave of heat spread out around War King Wind, it looked like he was about to attack. "Lucian, since you can't control the Black Star, you should give it back to Zen," suggested Turner calmly. Scott also took a step forward and stood beside Turner. This time, nobody seemed to be standing on War Emperor York's side. War Emperor York was outraged, but he didn't return the Black Star to Zen. Instead, his figure flashed as he charged straight towards the pyramid. He was unwilling to accept defeat. Even if he couldn't control the Black Star, he had to try it out. After all, it was a supreme divine weapon. The pickaxe might be much stronger than a normal sacred weapon or divine weapon. Seeing War Emperor York dashing towards the 45th layer, the three divine kingdom rulers just sighed. War King Wind said, "Forget it. If he's willing to give it a try, then let him." War Emperor York entered through the narrow door on the 45th layer and fell onto a leaf. There was a purple mineral devouring bug resting on the leaf. When it noticed War Emperor York, it made two short creaking sounds and flapped its wings in preparation to pounce on him. Even before the bug could approach War Emperor York, he struck out a fist. An invisible wave of the Emperor's powerful energy blew the purple mineral devouring bug away. In the past, War Emperor York would be interested in capturing this bug. However, now that he had the Black Star, he couldn't be bothered. After chasing the purple mineral devouring bug away, he took 2 steps forward and raised the Black Star in his hand. He brought the pickaxe down ruthlessly as his eyes gleamed with determination. Smash! Waves surged in the soul sea within his body. The power that his life vitality stimulated erupted in an instant. Bang! As he smashed the Black Star down on the leaf, the entire tree shook with the tremendous force. That blue leaf remained smooth as a mirror, without the slightest of cracks. Thwack! Bang! Thump! Thud! ... War Emperor York hit the leaf a dozen times with the Black Star. His palm cracked open and blood flowed from it towards the Black Star. However, the blood bounced off the Black Star, which had accepted Zen as its master. Now this pickaxe would not accept War Emperor York's blood. What was more, there was a law of causality on the leaf of the 45th layer too. This law of causality was for absolute defense. One couldn't break it by brute force alone. So War Emperor York failed not because he was lacking in strength, but because of the limitation of the rules. The Black Star contained the law of causality that it could break anything. Most importantly, its law of causality was more powerful than the one contained in the leaf. If the two laws of causality were to compete against each other, the pickaxe would surely win. However, War Emperor York wasn't able to control the black star, nor was he able to activate the law of causality in the pickaxe. He was deeply disappointed but also hesitant to return the black star to Zen. He gritted his teeth and sighed internally. Forget it. This thing is not something I need in my life. He then jumped off the leaf, falling into the circle of light. Soon, his figure appeared on the side of the pyramid. Turner and War King Wind looked at each other and smiled knowingly when they saw the expression on the poor War Emperor York's face. With the black star in his hand, War Emperor York flew towards them and sneered at Zen. He waved his right hand slightly and the black star flew straight towards Zen with a sharp whistle. It was obvious that it was carrying an extremely strong force with it. Thad, be careful, Fiona called out hastily as she saw the black star flying towards Zen. Zen's eyes flashed, and suddenly his body was filled with the power of 3,000 dragon scales. There was a nonchalant smile on his face. He easily caught the black star with just 2 fingers. Seeing this, the Soul Sea Realm Masters were surprised. They stood there dumbfounded. Everyone could clearly see the enormous force of the black star when War Emperor York released it. Despite being highly skilled warriors, they would have to go all out in order to receive this mighty pickaxe. But Zen had done it effortlessly. He only used 2 fingers to catch this impressive tool. He must be incredibly strong, everyone thought. With the black star in his hand, Zen smiled and focused on climbing to the top layers of the pyramid. When the Soul Sea Realm Masters saw Zen entering the pyramid, they, too, flew towards it and followed him in through the narrow gates. Divine-level talents like Callan, Fiona, Randy and Camilla also followed him. Although there were purple mineral-devouring bugs on the top layers, they might not pose a major threat to the divine-level talents as there were many powerful Soul Sea Realm Masters in the tree to protect them. Zen did not enter the top layer, but instead went straight to the 45th layer. The first ore he needed to obtain was the life crystal on that layer as it contained life energy. He only needed to get 1 life crystal to save Letitia. Just as Zen was about to step onto the 45th layer, many of the Soul Sea Realm Masters also entered. They stood on the leaves of the 45th layer, the 46th one as well as the top layer. The amount of ores in the leaves of the 45th, 46th and 47th layers was not big, but all of them were rare and precious. Almost every ore could be used to create semi-divine weapons or even divine weapons. Zen took 2 steps forward on the wide leaf and located the life crystal. Zen had spent a lot of time and effort finding this life crystal. Finally, he had found it and he also had the black star with him. A hint of excitement appeared on his face. Zen needed the life stones from the start and he intends to dig for the life crystal now. It seems like this item is really important to him. Is his family member's lifespan coming to an end? Does he need the life crystal to sustain his or her life? I have no idea. He is not a member of the 4 divine kingdoms after all. I wonder if the black star can really penetrate that leaf. I, too, have some doubts. Although the black star is known to be a supreme divine weapon, no one has ever seen its true power. The powerful Soul Sea Realm Masters were discussing all this among themselves on the leaves, with anticipation in their eyes. Basically, the top 3 layers of the mine tree were like 3 transparent treasure boxes. However, they hadn't been able to obtain the key to the treasure boxes for so many years. Now that the key had fallen into Zen's hands, everyone hoped that he would be able to open the boxes. This time, I'll definitely succeed. Zen's eyes flashed in excitement, and he lightly struck the blue leaf with the pickaxe in his hand. He did not employ much power, but as he brandished his pickaxe, a mysterious force spread out. This was the power of the law of causality. Ding! The Soul Sea Realm Masters held their collective breaths. The power was extremely simple but superior. The Soul Sea Realm Masters could tell that they would never be able to fight it. The pickaxe seemed to be able to penetrate through everything. The moment the black star struck the leaf, an invisible force field around the leaf cracked. This was the leaf's law of causality of absolute defense. When the 2 laws of causality were pitted against each other, the black star's law of causality had the absolute advantage. Therefore, when Zen barely tapped the leaf, it began to shatter layer by layer. Chapter 852, The Tribulation Flower. The black star pickaxe clanked as it was knocked against the giant leaf. Cracks continued to surface on the azure blue leaf, a number of life crystals popping out one after another. Zen smiled faintly and waved his hand, gathering the life crystals into his space ring. He had felt somewhat disappointed after obtaining the black star, for it could only dig up things. However, since it was a pickaxe, that was its only function. Now that he possessed the life crystals, his most urgent goal at this place had been accomplished. Nonetheless, after investing so much effort in getting the pickaxe, he wouldn't mind digging up some more ores. Just as Zen looked for his next target, he heard Turner speak to him politely. Thad, now that you've obtained the Black Star pickaxe, I need a favor from you. All the Soul Sea Realm Masters wished to seek Zen's help, but the one most qualified to make the request was Turner. After all, Turner had stepped in to help Zen quite a few times, and Zen was now regarded as a member of his divine kingdom. There was no reason for Zen to reject his demand. Your Majesty, please don't hesitate to speak your mind. I will grant you everything that you wish, Zen replied, respect evident in his voice. Turner nodded his head in satisfaction. Since Zen recognized him as the king and had regard for him, it would be easy for him to put forth his request. In order to enter the heavenly stellar secret land, the 4 divine kingdoms need a type of ore from these leaves. It is called soul core, correct? Zen had already heard about it from Lord Randy, so he immediately made a guess. Yes, and there's one about 10 feet away to the left of your feet, Turner said politely, a smile lingering about his mouth. There happened to be a number of soul cores on the 45th, 46th, and 47th layers. However, in the past years, they had placed all their hopes of getting the soul cores on the purple mineral devouring bugs. For that reason, the 4 divine kingdoms had only obtained a total of 100 or so soul cores thus far. That would have been fine if they still had all of those soul cores, however they had lost most of them along the way. This year, they only had 36 soul cores in their possession. Anyone who wanted to enter the heavenly stellar secret land would need to use a soul core to obtain a corpse of the dragon lineage humans. The 4 divine kingdoms had so many soul sea realm masters that the numbers of soul cores were far from enough. Because of that, each year the 4 divine kingdoms clamored over the allocation of soul cores. Fortunately, they might not need to struggle over that this year. The powerful warriors of the soul sea realm shared this sentiment, all owing to this young man who was only at the virtual tribulation realm. Following Turner's instructions, Zen moved around, soon finding an ore under his feet. The ore had a perfectly round shape and thumped quietly like a small heart. So this is a soul core. After obtaining this, I'll have the right to enter the heavenly stellar secret land. Zen's eyes flickered with excitement. He finally had the chance to enter the heavenly stellar secret land. He had agreed to help the Cyan dragon take the ancestral dragon's egg from there. Quick as a wink, Zen brandished his black star pickaxe and shattered the leaf. He then bent down and took out the soul core which was still beating silently. Seeing this, the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm smiled gladly. Turner turned to them. Go look for them quickly. He ordered. Everyone, record the locations of the soul cores around you. Thad, I'm afraid we will have to trouble you for some time. Wait a minute, sir. Please hear my request first, Zen chipped in. Turner smiled. Feel free to convey it, Thad. May I participate in your journey to the heavenly stellar secret land? Zen asked straightaway. Hearing this, Lucian, who stood on a faraway leaf, snorted. The heavenly stellar secret land is the most important place of our 4 divine kingdoms. He said in a cold voice. We won't allow any outsiders in. Some of the other Soul Sea realm masters scorned at Zen as well. Ever since they had found the way to enter the heavenly stellar secret land, none of the talents from the younger generation under the Soul Sea realm had been allowed in. To them, Zen's request was ridiculous. But before Turner could say anything, Scott, who had been silent all this while, spoke up. Thad is not an outsider. He is a member of the Harlan Divine Kingdom. In the past, our number of soul cores was limited, but now with Thad's help, we won't have to worry about it any longer. Turner too agreed with him. That's right. The number of soul cores in these 3 layers probably exceeds 200. There won't be any issue if Thad joins us. War Emperor York sneered but didn't say anything else. Now that the other 2 had agreed to Zen's request, he had no choice but to accept it. Besides, they still needed Zen to dig out the soul cores for them. After the kings gave their assent, Zen got to work. He jumped off the leaves and entered again through the narrow doors. There's a soul core here. Here it is, on the 46th layer. I found 3 here on this leaf. Come over when you're done. I have 2 here as well. As he dug out the soul cores one by one, Zen did not forget to extract the other ores as well. The ores of these layers were invaluable, so Zen accumulated them all into his space ring. The powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm watched with envious eyes as Zen took the precious ores. They wanted to take their shares of the spoils but were too embarrassed to ask for his favor. Zen, on the other hand, had already decided what he would do with the ores. He only needed one soul core for himself. If the warriors wanted the rest, Zen would give them away appropriately as gifts. After all, he was just a virtual Tribulation Realm warrior. He needed to get along with the emperors if he wanted to gain a foothold in the divine kingdoms. The warriors would not allow him to take away treasures from their continent without a price anyway, even though they couldn't dig them out by themselves. Through Zen's sustained efforts, many leaves at the top 3 layers were shattered into pieces, revealing the hidden ores inside. After Zen reached the top layer and began digging the 3 leaves of the layer, his gaze turned to the exquisite flower at the top of the tree. When Zen had been at the 45th layer, he had observed the dazzling flower for a long time. There was no doubt in his mind that the flower was the core of the tree. Smash it open, Zen, the Cyan Dragon's voice rang out in Zen's head. This flower, Zen muttered as he studied the flower thoughtfully. The Cyan Dragon chuckled and said, it's the tribulation flower of this earth tree. The tribulation flower, what's that? Zen's eyes flashed with curiosity. The flower looked so beautiful, but its name sounded strange to his ears. The tribulation flower can expand the power of a heavenly tribulation. It can strengthen the power of a life and death tribulation to the maximum, the Cyan Dragon replied. As he heard this, Zen's eyes widened with surprise. Strengthen the power of the life and death tribulation, he repeated with interest. After reaching the life and death realm, warriors were bound to face the life and death tribulations, same as the small heavenly tribulations that Lavender had mentioned. They could reach the Soul Sea realm only after facing several heavenly tribulations. However, the dangerous life and death tribulations had sealed the fates of most life and death realm warriors. There were tens of thousands of life and death realm warriors in the 4 divine kingdoms. That number would have been countless times more if all the life and death realm warriors in the past thousands of years were to be included. However, there were few who had reached the Soul Sea realm, or would make it there in future. It was widely accepted that about 99% of the life and death realm warriors had been killed by the life and death tribulations. Warriors were always afraid that the life and death tribulation was too difficult to brave through, but this tribulation flower could even make the life and death tribulation even harder. Zen doubted the flower would do him any good. Anyone in the lower world is qualified to ascend to the upper world after reaching the Soul Sea realm, the Cyan Dragon elucidated. But in the upper world, the Soul Sea realm is just the beginning. The first step for a warrior to embark on his journey. As for the small heavenly tribulation of the life and death realm, it is not only a tribulation but also like a baptism of fire for all warriors. Whether it is in the genuine dragon world or any other supreme worlds, the small heavenly tribulation in the life and death realm has always been regarded as an important event. The more small heavenly tribulations a warrior can get through, the greater his potential in the future. Warriors who had been promoted to the Soul Sea realm after experiencing 5 or 6 small heavenly tribulations belonged to the lower ranks in the upper world. Similarly, warriors who had gone through 7 small heavenly tribulations to reach the Soul Sea realm were considered as second-rate warriors. And among all kinds of forces, the warriors who could undergo 8 small heavenly tribulations were considered to be the top warriors, worth all efforts of the forces to train them. However, someone who could undergo 9 small heavenly tribulations was decidedly exceptional. Such a character would undoubtedly shake the status quo with his name and go down in the history books of the era. In every 10 million years, there were only 5 or 6 people of any great race blessed to be such chosen ones. Zen was taken aback by the Cyan Dragon's words. It seemed that there were no titles such as the heaven level or divine level talents in the upper world. With the methods of the great races above, it would perhaps be quite easy for a warrior to reach the Soul Sea realm. Nonetheless, it was almost impossible to change the number of the heavenly tribulations one was to undergo. If that's the case, the upper world should also be keen on this tribulation flower, yes? Zen asked. The Cyan Dragon smiled. There are no earth trees in the upper world. This tribulation flower is in fact a fortune for you warriors of the lower world. Chapter 853. Life vitality started to solidify. The many supreme worlds in the upper world were rich in resources, be it cultivation methods, inheritances or the vastness of the worlds. Thus, in regard to cultivation, the martial artists from the upper world enjoyed far greater cultivation resources than the marital artists in the lower world. To the martial artists of the upper world, the warriors from the lower world were nothing more than country bumpkins that came from remote mountains. Only a few of them could advance to a very high level. The upper world certainly had its own advantage, but the martial artists in the lower world also had their own unique advantages. For instance, the competition in the lower world was less intense than that in the upper world. The martial artists from the lower world would also avoid the tribulation flower at all costs, as it could increase the difficulty of tribulations. The life and death realm warriors hoped that after surviving a few life and death tribulations, they would be able to enter the soul sea realm. So they could not wish that the tribulations increased in difficulty. On the other hand, for the martial artists of the upper world, the tribulation flower was an absolute precious treasure. Even the value of a divine weapon would not match up to the value of the tribulation flower. Zen was not willing to be confined to the small lower world. So, in order to prepare himself to advance from the virtual tribulation realm to the life and death realm, he would have to build a solid and strong foundation. However, the stronger a warrior was, the more difficult the heavenly tribulation the warrior would face. Since Letitia practiced the Sutra of Empyrean Goddess, her strength was far stronger than that of any other martial artists of the same level. Therefore, when Letitia broke through the virtual tribulation realm and entered the life and death realm, the small heavenly tribulation she suffered was unprecedentedly stronger. She even encountered rare nightmare tribulation. Zen was only at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm, and his strength was enough to fight against a powerful master of the soul sea realm. If a powerful master of the soul sea realm didn't use a domain to restrict Zen, he would become invincible in the great world. If Zen wanted to advance to the life and death realm, he had to face difficulties beyond imagination. Adding the effect of the tribulation flower, he might not be able to survive. Zen looked at the tribulation flower. It was a beautifully shaped object. Without hesitation, he walked towards it, grabbed his black star pickaxe and smashed it. An invisible force suddenly burst out from the black star pickaxe. Zen knew it was powerful and wondered if there was anything in the upper world that could resist it. In this great world, however, nothing could resist it. The law of causality contained in his black star pickaxe was too powerful. Clang! The tribulation flower suddenly shattered under Zen's blows. The polygonal petals broke into countless small fragments, revealing a small pistol in the center. "Pick that flower pistol and drink the nectar," said the cyan dragon, who had been very clear on the benefits that the tribulation flower could bring to Zen, so he hoped that Zen would make good use of this opportunity. Many of the powerful warriors of the soul sea realm hadn't left yet. They stood motionlessly on nearby leaves and watched the scene unfold before their eyes. When they saw that Zen had broken the tribulation flower, envy filled their hearts and faces. The flower had bloomed for many years on the top of the mineral tree. No one knew exactly how long it had been there. Many powerful warriors of the soul sea realm had speculated about what this flower could do. The flower stood at the top of the tree immovable like the leaves on the tree. So far, no one had figured out a way to pick it up. Now Zen had easily smashed the flower and taken away its pistol, and they had every reason to be jealous. Zen ignored them. This pistol was as thick as a human wrist, similar to the natural crystals of ores. The pistol was filled with a light green liquid. As soon as Zen took the pistol, he could smell the intoxicating fragrance coming from it. How fragrant! Zen gasped in admiration before putting the pistol to his lips. He then drank the whole light green liquid. When the light green liquid entered his mouth, Zen felt an intense burning sensation spreading from his mouth all the way down his throat, chest and stomach. It was as if a flame was burning in his body. Zen was able to endure the scorching burning pain, but what followed was unbearable. He felt as if all his internal organs were on fire. His stomach started aching severely. At the same time, the life vitality in his cinnabar field and the forceful energy in the 100 meetings platform also became uncontrollably erratic. He had never felt such strong pain, even when he was refining his body. As the pain became unbearable, he couldn't help but let out a loud groan. Ah! Zen tried to control the pain with breathing and entering the state of forgetting himself. Usually it was an easy task, but not this time. This time the pain was too strong and took away his focus. He failed to enter the state of forgetting himself. Zen fell to the ground and rolled around, curled up with his knees up to his chest. A sneer surfaced on War Emperor York's face as he stood on the other leaf and watched Zen. "You are so bold to randomly eat something without even trying to figure out what it is. It serves you right." Other than War Emperor York, Turner and a few others looked worried. They did not know whether the flower of the mineral tree was poisonous or not. If it was poisonous, it could be deadly. As Zen rolled around, he fell from the leaf. Seeing that Zen had fallen, everyone else left the leaves too. Zen appeared once again on the outside of the pyramid. The pain in his abdomen became more and more intense, and he twisted his body vehemently. Fortunately, his body was very strong, but as he rolled around on the ground in pain, the ground suddenly became full of bumps. "Thad, what happened to you?" When Fiona and some others saw Zen in pain, they gathered around him trying to understand what was wrong with him. Randy was worried and decided to call a few other warriors to come and help. Randy frowned and said, "Do you think he has been poisoned?" Fiona shook her head and said, "No, that's impossible. Even the dragon arsenic couldn't hurt Zen. What kind of poison could cause him so much pain?" Turner, who had just left the tree and landed on the ground, said blandly, "He drank the nectar in the flower pistil at the top of the tree. I don't know why he has such a strong reaction to it. That pistil is probably the most poisonous thing in the world. It will kill anyone who drinks it. This kid has brought it upon himself," War Emperor York said after Turner. When War King Wind heard this, he coldly said, "If Zen dies, no one else knows how to control the Black Star pickaxe. No one in the 4 divine kingdoms will be able to break the leaves on the upper floors and get the soul cores. What will we do without him?" So far, with the help of Zen, they had harvested enough soul cores, but these would eventually be consumed. Since the 4 divine kingdoms didn't have the control of the heavenly stellar secret land, then they had to rely on the soul cores to enter it. If the soul cores were used up, they would have to return to their old ways of capturing the mineral-devouring bugs to get soul cores. That way they were only able to obtain one single soul core every few years. The worst situation they encountered was when they spent 9 consecutive years without finding even one soul core. This year we have already gathered so many soul cores that would for sure allow our 4 divine kingdoms to occupy the heavenly stellar secret land. In the future, we won't need soul cores anymore." War Emperor York fell silent. This was all he could come up with to defend himself. As the other powerful masters of the Soul Sea realm kept on discussing, Zen suddenly stopped rolling on the floor and his body started emitting a stronger aura. "What is happening?" "Thad's aura is getting stronger," a mighty warrior of the Soul Sea realm said. "He pulled through and made it. Now his cultivation has reached the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm." Another master said. "He actually made it at this critical stage, it is unbelievable." Zen's pain had disappeared and his life vitality had gathered in his lower abdomen and condensed to an unprecedented form. After being highly compressed, his life vitality which had been in the form of gas started to liquefy. Only martial artists at the life and death realm were able to condense their life vitality. In other words, now that Zen entered the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm, he immediately started preparing himself to enter the life and death realm. The life vitality within Zen's cinnabar field continued to condense and it started to flow slower and slower. For most life and death realm martial artists, the condensation process of life vitality was extremely slow. Not only that, but the condensed life vitality would flow just like water. However, as Zen's life vitality condensed, it actually became thicker and thicker, just like paste. "It's getting harder for me to make the life vitality circulate. It seems like it's going to freeze." Zen frowned while sitting on the ground. The Cyan Dragon was shocked by what Zen said. "The life vitality is solidifying, this is so strange. I can't believe the life vitality started to solidify when you just broke through to the life and death realm." Zen was in a state of confusion when he heard the Cyan Dragon's words, "Does life vitality solidify? What do you mean?" Chapter 854, Heavenly Tribulation. Normally a martial artist would be able to liquefy his life vitality at the life and death realm, and the elixir field would be able to store even more of it. Once the martial artist reached the Soul Sea realm, he would be able to open up a world, and his elixir field would be transformed into a vast ocean. When warriors reached a higher level, they could even nurture life in the vast ocean, creatures that could reproduce, become civilized, or even cultivate. In this period, the liquefied life vitality would slowly solidify, forming continents on the Soul Sea. Logically speaking, at Zen's current cultivation, he should still be far from solidifying his life vitality. But his life vitality began to solidify without explanation and cause. The Cyan Dragon was shocked. As knowledgeable as he was, he could not understand what was going on. As the life vitality within Zen's body gradually solidified, its rotation speed became slower and slower. Suddenly, in this moment, a dark cloud appeared in the sky. How did this dark cloud appear out of nowhere in such a clear sky? It's indeed very strange. Why did the sky change so quickly? The dark cloud is expanding really fast. Everyone was looking up at the strange scene in the sky. The black cloud that had splattered suddenly across the originally clear blue sky looked like a drop of ink dripping into a pool of clear water. The terrifying thing about it was that it was expanding at an incredible speed. It had covered the entire Feather Emperor Island in the blink of an eye. One moment, it was daytime, and the next, dark cloud had covered the sky. It had taken half a minute for the dark cloud to cover the Feather Holy Sea. And 5 minutes later, it had covered the entire Divine Kingdom continent. The vast lands of the 4 Divine Kingdoms were now all enveloped by darkness. Oil lamps were lit in the large towns of all the Divine Kingdoms. A few people belonging to the older generation even began to mutter to themselves, looking at the sky as they prayed that the gods wouldn't be angry with them. As Zen gazed at the dark sky, he suddenly felt an intense malicious intent. It was the evil intentions of heaven. Is this my first small heavenly tribulation? Zen wondered. He had once witnessed a small heavenly tribulation. A colossal phenomenon had occurred when Letitia had gone through one. Back then, the scope of the phenomenon only just covered an area up to just being above the cloud hall. The black cloud in the sky, however, was endless. One could only imagine how powerful the upcoming heavenly tribulation would be. What a powerful aura! This is the life and death tribulation Thad will have to face. Turner sighed and said, this life and death tribulation is more powerful than the ones we've faced. War King Wind saw this and sighed, worried, how can Thad endure this? When warriors broke through to the life and death realm, heaven would become wary of and repulse them. The warriors would have to experience heavenly tribulations, irrespective of whether they belonged to the life and death realm, soul sea realm, or a realm that was even higher. The more powerful the warrior was, the more powerful the heavenly tribulation would be. Everyone knew that Zen's strength was far beyond that of his peers. If he was to advance to the life and death realm, then the heavenly tribulation that he would trigger would be even more powerful. However, no one could have imagined that Zen's heavenly tribulation would be this terrifying. It had already surpassed the power of the life and death realm heavenly tribulation, and was even more terrifying than the heavenly tribulation many soul sea realm warriors had experienced. Boom! A ray of light suddenly flashed across the pitch-black cloud. A giant dragon formed out of lightning spiraled through the dark cloud. The moment the giant lightning dragon lit up, the Divine Kingdom continent that had been pitch dark, became bright as day. Everything in the world, mountains, rivers, towns, the faces of old people, the fur of little dogs, everything was bright and clear in this moment. But this beam of light only lasted for 3 seconds, after which the lightning dragon was once again hidden within the thick black cloud. Everything was immersed in darkness again. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The lightning dragon streaked across the sky once again, and the light once again flickered, blindingly bright. Some mortals in the towns knelt down and prayed to the sky, hoping that the heavens would forgive them for their sins and purify their souls. Zen gulped, a trace of fear tinging his heart and his face as he beheld this frightening sight. He was now regretting swallowing the nectar from the pistil of the tribulation flower. He would be lying if he said he wasn't afraid. Even the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm were secretly scared as they faced this powerful force. They were frightened even though this heavenly tribulation wasn't aimed at them. But since Zen was the target of this heavenly tribulation, it was natural for him to feel fear. But Zen's fear only lasted for a short while before he clenched his fists, resolution taking over his features. This was a calamity that had come from the heavens. Zen had no way of retreat. This heavenly tribulation was a test for him, a step that he must take in the path of martial arts. Only by taking this step could Zen qualify to be promoted to the life and death realm. He would then advance towards the Soul Sea realm, and later, step by step, towards the upper world. Heavens! Zen already knew thanks to Lavender's message that this was the heavens' intention. He looked up at the sky and softly said, "Come." Boom, boom, boom. The thunder that resounded throughout the entirety of the Divine Kingdom continent became denser and denser, like the footsteps of a massive dragon. It slowly moved above the dark cloud, taking one step at a time towards Zen, who was on the Feather Emperor Island. Fiona, Callan, behind me. War King Wind called to Fiona and Callan. Turner had also told Randy and Bram to get close to him. The power of this heavenly tribulation was simply too terrifying. Just a sliver of it would be enough to kill all of these divine-level talents. The other divine-level talents didn't have the protection of the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm, so they could only retreat as far as possible. "Father, will Thad be okay?" Fiona asked worriedly. This wasn't an easy question to answer for the War King Wind. If it had been an ordinary divine-level talent undergoing tribulation, they would have been able to come up with some conclusion based on their own experience. Zen, however, was anything but ordinary. Even War King Wind would not have had the confidence to go through this calamity before him, which was why he was finding it difficult to give Fiona an optimistic answer. Fiona didn't prod her father further, once she had seen him choose to remain silent. Everyone knew the answer, but kept it to themselves. She understood how difficult this life and death tribulation was. War Emperor York had a cold smile on his face as he thought, "You are indeed a peerless talent. It is a pity that you are too special. If the heavens want you to die, you will have no choice but to die. You will not be able to resist." The other warriors at the Soul Sea realm felt a chill steal through their hearts. Zen was probably finished now. Boom! Another bolt of lightning pierced the dark cloud, revealing the fact that the lightning dragon had already moved above Zen. Is it here? Zen thought, eyes glinting, and began to extract traces of forceful energy from his elixir field. Because his life vitality had solidified, the difficulty of extracting life vitality had increased. The solidified life vitality hardly moved, but he could do nothing but get used to it. Over time, Zen's meridians became much thicker than those of ordinary martial artists. Body protecting life vitality. A light purple-colored barrier of life vitality enveloped Zen. He then began to spread out his consciousness and communicate with the stars. Stellar body. 2 streaks of starlight suddenly pierced through the thick cloud and met each other on Zen's body. This starlight, it's the power of the stars. What kind of refinement technique is Zen cultivating? A Soul Sea Realm warrior exclaimed, amazed. He was the one who had visualized the stars. But no matter how hard he had tried, he hadn't been able to attract the starlight no matter how real it was. He couldn't figure out how Zen had done it, how he had been able to mobilize the stars from so far away. This was simply too amazing. Looking at the starlight on Zen's body, many of the experts at the Soul Sea Realm fell silent. They had thought that Zen had displayed his full strength at the West Dragon River. But it looked like he was still hiding a huge trump card within himself. Just how many trump cards did this kid have on him? Chapter 855, The Thunder Law. Zen had used his life vitality to protect his body as he activated the stellar body, but it did nothing to quell his disquiet. His eyes shone as cold as ever. Previously, when Letitia was undergoing her life and death tribulation, the first wave of the thunder tribulation had been the weakest, but the other waves of heavenly tribulation became stronger each time. Now, even the first wave of thunder tribulation had already been so terrifying in its intensity. What about the next waves of heavenly tribulations? Zen did not dare to imagine the frightening possibilities, nor did he bother to think any more about them. If he could not dodge them, then he could only strike at the right moment. As the lightning dragon was getting closer and closer to him, the dark cloud above his head roiled around, spinning in a slow circle. Then a hole opened at the center. A ray of light shot down from the hole, as if it had punctured the sky. It was a strange sight to behold. Like a pulse, the ray of light appeared only for a split second before a blazing white light covered it. Soon, to the disbelief and fear of many people, lightning morphed into the shape of a dragon claw and descended from the hole. The many powerful warriors of the Soul Sea Realm looked with wide-open eyes at the scene that they were witnessing. The dragon claw reached out from the hole and began to tear the skies. The thick layer of dark cloud was torn apart. The crowd watched as the wisps scattered into shapeless masses. The next moment, the dragon's body descended. The blazing white dragon head formed by the lightning suddenly let out an earth-shattering roar as it faced Zen. Howl. Immediately after, lightning appeared on its body, followed by another massive explosion. Zen's eyes flickered at the sight before him. He willed his mind to be calm, his features settling into a placid expression. His eyes narrowed on the dragon and his dry lips moved to say softly, "Come on." Boom! Lightning struck, as if to split the entire earth in two. The colossal dragon circled in the air before pouncing towards Zen. The dragon was the size of a mountain range, but it was rapidly shrinking as it charged forward. However, this was not an indication that its strength was weakening. It was gathering its power, preparing for its attack. Heavenly tribulations are calamities that come from the heaven. There is no way to avoid them, so I would have to take on this colossal dragon. Zen suddenly stood up from the ground. At the same time, a strong, vivid aura emanated from his body. Meanwhile, the lightning dragon continued to charge directly towards him. It's only a lightning dragon. All this is a facade. It's far inferior to a real dragon, Zen declared. Strength coursed into Zen's body. His power intensified with every second. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Zen's physical body should sustain the strength of 5,000 dragon scales when it was pushed to its limit. However, activating the power of 5,000 dragon scales would inflict considerable damage to him and lower his defenses, making him more susceptible to injuries in battle. The small heavenly tribulations came in many waves. Right now, it was not an option for him to be injured. The best he could do, even if he was faced with a giant lightning dragon, was to advance with the power of 4,000 dragon scales. Zen could feel the power of 4,000 dragon scales pouring into his body. His bones creaked as his muscles tightened, and his skin stretched as he grew in size. He stood like a giant, facing the dragon in the sky alone. In the eyes of humans, Zen's body was twice as big. However, he was as small as an ant compared to the lightning dragon that was rapidly descending from the sky. The dragon plunged down and closed the distance between it and Zen rapidly. 10,000 feet, 1,000 feet, 100 feet. The dragon suddenly opened its bloody mouth and was about to devour Zen whole. Zen did not falter at this terrifying vision. He leapt forward and charged straight towards the dragon. Seeing this, Fiona covered her mouth with one hand. Her eyes were wide as she watched Zen face the dragon head-on. War King Wind, on the other hand, was in awe of the young man's boldness. Good, Zen is courageous. He dared to come forward, he said softly. Martial artists cultivated in different ways. Some of them complied with the rules of the heaven, while others established their discipline and resisted old practices. They had only one thing in common. No matter what path they chose, all of them would have to cross this threshold. Heaven was a mystery and a nightmare for every martial artist. Power was granted only to those brave enough to dare to possess it. In order to elevate in strength, one could never let go of the will to fight, even in the face of the disasters of heaven. The moment Zen threw himself at the lightning dragon, the defense of his life vitality instantly collapsed. A martial artist's protective life vitality wouldn't be particularly strong. Warriors were trained to fight, not to defend themselves. Zen did not practice a cultivation method related to this, and as a natural consequence, his protective life vitality crumbled under the attack of the thunder tribulation. The dragon had destroyed Zen's protective life vitality and wanted to get into Zen's body. However, this time, the 2 rays of starlight on his body prevented the dragon from entering him. The stellar body was a type of transcendent divine might. By now, Zen had only mastered the second move, but its power could not be underestimated. The power of thunder and lightning that forms this lightning dragon should be at the 4th level, almost the 5th. Even the stellar body might not be able to block it. Despite the danger, Zen's gaze was indifferent. He had entered into a state where no distracting thought lingered in his mind. His sole focus was fighting against this heavenly tribulation. Under the relentless attacks of the huge lightning dragon, the starlight on Zen's body began to dim visibly. The 2 stars on the thick black cloud also dimmed gradually along with it. Once the starlight disappeared, he would have no choice but to rely on his own body to fight against the dragon. Crack, crack, crack. Intense, coiling lightning wrapped around Zen's body and constricted his movements. It was like the death god's caress, dragging him to perdition. Soon, the star power finally disappeared, and the 2 stars in the sky also disappeared in the cover of the clouds. Bone-piercing pain coursed through Zen's body. It was fortunate that Zen's body was tough. Ordinary martial artists in the later stage of the virtual tribulation realm would have been instantly devoured by this powerful lightning, and not even their ashes would be left behind as traces. Zen's body was covered with numerous black marks. Under the strikes of lightning, his skin instantly turned jet black, as if he was a coal miner who had just crawled out of a mine. Stop! Zen charged all the way up to the belly of the lightning dragon. Then, he stretched his body and released the power of the dragon's scales. An unstoppable, tide-like force burst from within him. It aimed straight to the lightning dragon, as if it was an invisible sharp blade. There was only silence for a fraction of a second, and then the dragon was split in half from the middle. The warriors of the Soul Sea realm could hardly believe what they saw. Zen had split the lightning dragon's body into 2. Zen exhaled deeply upon seeing what had happened, but the relief would only last for an instant. The next moment, the dragon that had been torn in 2 shot out to either side. Now, there were 2 smaller dragons, charging towards Zen once again. The lightning dragon formed in this heavenly tribulation is simply indestructible. How will I be able to defeat it? It would be impossible to rely on my own body to swallow it, Zen said inwardly, his face hardening. The dragons didn't give Zen any time to think. They charged towards him, one on the left and one on the right. What should I do? Zen could feel his anxiousness getting hold of him as he stood in the middle of the 2 lightning dragons. Just then, the cyan dragon faintly smiled and said, Zen, have you forgotten about your own talent? My talent? Zen asked in his mind as he watched the 2 dragons get closer and closer. You have gone through the baptism by laws, and you know the thunder law best. As I have said before, a heavenly tribulation is a catastrophe for a martial artist, but it is also a chance. Many talents in the upper world eagerly hope that their heavenly tribulations can become even stronger, so that they will have greater chances, the cyan dragon reminded. Chance. Master the thunder law. Zen narrowed his eyes. Of all the original laws, the time law was the hardest, followed by the space law. The thunder, fire, ice, and metal laws, however, were relatively easier. Zen had gone through the baptism by laws, so he was able to quickly master the time law, which was the most difficult. The thunder law had been much easier to comprehend. Chapter 856, Control the Thunder Tribulation. Yes, comprehend the thunder law and control it. Zen thought, his heart skipping a beat. One couldn't blame Zen for not being able to think of this earlier, as he had been focusing all his attention on resisting the heavenly tribulation. He didn't realize that instead of fighting the heavenly tribulation, he could make use of it. Boom! Zen's figure flashed as he suddenly descended, dodging the attack from the two lightning dragons. Both dragons entwined with each other, forming a bigger one again, and charged towards him. Crack! During this process, thick bolts of lightning struck out in all directions. Some of the lightning bolts struck the ground and were quickly absorbed by the earth, while other lightning bolts headed straight for the Soul Sea Realm Masters present. All of the Soul Sea Realm Masters had already activated their life vitality to protect themselves, but the lightning bolts were lashing about like whips, striking their shields of life vitality and causing them to tremble. Thunder Law. Zen already comprehended the first layer of Thunder Law when he was at the genuine dragon world. This was the foundation of his Thunder Law. As Zen's figure rapidly descended, he began to observe the Thunder Law contained within the enormous lightning dragon above him closely. The first layer of the Thunder Law was annihilation. The second layer was purification, and the third was heavenly tribulation. When warriors advanced to the life and death realm, the life and death crisis triggered by them included the third layer of the Thunder Law. This was probably the reason that the third layer was called heavenly tribulation. However, the enormous lightning dragon that Zen was facing right now contained the fourth layer of the Thunder Law. He silently gazed at the enormous lightning dragon as his mind spun rapidly. The mysterious Thunder Law hidden within the dazzling lightning bolts was slowly being unveiled to him. The more compatible one was with a law, the faster one could comprehend it. After going through the baptism by laws, Zen could easily understand lower layers of various laws, though higher layers of laws were still a little difficult for him to comprehend. Nevertheless, understanding the Thunder Law in a short period of time wasn't an easy task. Moreover, the lightning dragon didn't let go of Zen. It charged towards him repeatedly, in an attempt to swallow him. This time, Zen did not resist. He was completely absorbed into the world of Thunder Law. The Thunder Law contained within every lightning bolt was like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle that swiftly started assembling in his mind. He wanted to control the Thunder Law contained within this lightning dragon completely before his body reached its limit. 3 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. The lightning corroded Zen's body continuously. Even his sacred weapon-like body wouldn't be able to withstand these lightning strikes. A burning smell emanated from his charred body. It was scorched black by the lightning. His body couldn't take it anymore. Zen was pressed for time. The pieces of the Thunder Law, from the first layer to the fourth layer, appeared in his mind continuously, and he had already completed 1/3 of this jigsaw puzzle in a short period of time. However, his body was unable to withstand any more stress. It was becoming weaker and weaker. If he were to continue standing here and allowing this lightning dragon to strike him again, his body would probably be damaged before he could fully grasp the fourth layer. Originally, he had planned to rely solely on his own strength to endure this lightning dragon. But he could no longer do so. It seemed that he had overestimated his body. He let out a soft sigh. Suddenly he had an epiphany. He immediately began to transfer the power he had received. Transfer the power. By doing this, Zen was using the entire world to help him bear the brunt of the lightning strikes. Boom! There was a ginormous splash within the Feather Holy Sea. This was followed by a second, a third, a fourth. In this way, countless violent splashes appeared and disappeared without a sound. Zen had transferred the attacks from the lightning dragon aimed at him into the Feather Holy Sea. Thanks to this transfer of power, Zen finally had enough time to comprehend the fourth layer of Thunder Law that was contained within the lightning dragon. Great, I've already grasped the second and third layers of the Thunder Law. He stared at the dazzling lightning while absorbing the Thunder Law within frantically. He was sharp as a tack. Laws were more difficult to comprehend when they came to the higher layers. It was easier to comprehend the first, second and third layers of the Thunder Law, but after reaching the fourth layer, the level of difficulty had increased. Meanwhile, in the Feather Holy Sea, a massive amount of seawater continued to churn, and as the waves hit, it finally turned into a monstrous tsunami. The waves were over 1,000 feet high, and they advanced fiercely in the direction of the Feather Emperor Island. If this tsunami were to hit the island, it was likely that the entire island would be submerged. Obviously the 4 divine kingdoms did not want this to happen. 3 of the Soul Sea Realm Masters rushed to deal with the surging tsunami. Set up an enchanted barrier. Block the waves. No, we can't just block it. If we do so and try to push it back, I'm afraid we'll destroy the cities near the Feather Holy Sea. Then let's eliminate this tsunami. The three powerful warriors launched a joint attack. They set up 2 enchanted barriers to isolate the tsunami. The tsunami danced manically back and forth between the 2 enchanted barriers for a long time before finally calming down. However, just as they got rid of this tsunami, another one formed not far away. The 3 Soul Sea Realm Masters looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They proceeded to subdue the new tsunami once again. Zen was not afraid of the current thunder tribulation as he could transfer the power he had received. However, he knew it wouldn't be easy to deal with the other waves of the heavenly tribulation. The current thunder tribulation was just the first wave of attack by the heavenly tribulation. So he did not want to use the power transferring skill, which was his trump card, to overcome the thunder tribulation. Crack! The lightning dragon wrapped around Zen like a hot white chain. Soon so many lightning bolts were covering his body that the crowd could no longer see what was going on. They could only see a blazing white ball of light. This is the power of the 4th layer of Thunder Law. If I was trapped by such a strong power, I wouldn't be able to escape. War King Wind said, shaking his head. But that has fought for so long. The thunder tribulation is just the first wave of attack, yet it has lasted for a long time. It seems like there is no easy way to defeat it. I wonder how he is going to escape, Turner said with a frown. Even though Zen was able to transfer the power of the lightning into the Feather Holy Sea, the lightning dragon's might did not weaken. How would Zen get out of the trouble? The Soul Sea Realm Masters sighed when they saw this scene. They understood that they probably wouldn't be able to withstand such a terrifying heavenly tribulation even with their strength of the Soul Sea Realm. That is indeed a freak. He has attracted such an intense counterattack from the heavens, they thought. He was someone who had angered even the heavens in the end. Everyone was pessimistic about Zen's fate. However, after 5 minutes, everyone suddenly realized that something was not right. The lightning dragon's body was slowly shrinking. Is the thunder tribulation finally coming to an end? But how can it decline so fast? The downfall of the lightning dragon has just begun. I wonder what happened. It's really strange. It seems like something has sucked the lightning away. The Soul Sea Realm Masters were also at a loss. They stared in bewilderment at the scene playing out before them. At this moment, Fiona pursed her lips and a trace of anticipation appeared in her eyes. Zen had exceeded her expectations time and time again. Although she was worried, she still had full of confidence in him and was certain that this time, too, Zen would be able to do the same. The lightning dragon was shrinking rapidly. It decreased from the size of a mountain range to the size of a small mountain in mere seconds. It continued shrinking until it completely disappeared. As for Zen, he was still standing on the ground. His entire body was charred black, but his pupils were shining brightly. A faint flash of lightning could be seen inside his eyes. Chapter 857, Metal Tribulation. The heavenly tribulation was a calamity that fell from the heavens. The lightning dragon was the creature of the heavens and had no master. After comprehending the 4th layer of the Thunder Law, Zen began to refine the lightning dragon. The heavenly tribulation was both a test for warriors and also an opportunity to enhance themselves. Thus, from the life and death realm onwards, warriors had to pass life and death crises one after another. A life and death crisis was equal to a life and death trial. It would allow one to become stronger. Multiple rays of lightning surged unceasingly in Zen's eyes. After he absorbed the lightning dragon, the electric currents continued to ravage his body. Thanks to his control over the law power, he was able to digest the massive amount of lightning. He actually consumed all of the thunder tribulation. What a freak. It's not like this has never happened before. When Lexer was making a breakthrough to the Soul Sea realm, he had also absorbed the thunder tribulation. It's not the same. When Lexer was making a breakthrough to the Soul Sea realm, the thunder tribulation he faced was only at the 2nd layer. This huge lightning dragon contains the 4th layer Thunder Law. The Soul Sea realm masters were also whispering to each other. Their faces were full of envy. The thunder tribulation did not cause much harm to Zen, it actually strengthened him. Humph. The thunder tribulation was just the first wave of attack, yet it was so terrifying. What kind of things are behind this? War Emperor York asked irritably. The dark clouds in the sky began to dissipate layer by layer, and light shone down through the enormous empty space that was revealed in the sky. The thick clouds began to dissipate at a visible speed. After a few minutes, the dark clouds that had formed over the entire continent completely disappeared, and brightness returned. Several Soul Sea realm masters who had been fighting the tsunami also returned to the Feather Emperor Island. Right at this moment, a golden ray of light shot out from the horizon. Within the ray of light were more than 10 figures, led by a white-browed Taoist priest who was dressed in robes. He was the one hosting the competition by the side of the West Dragon River. He was a human warrior from the upper world. Master Derek, Turner greeted the priest respectfully. Master Derek, are you here because of the Thunder Tribulation? War King Wind asked as he flew up to greet the priest. The other Soul Sea Realm warriors also bowed at him respectfully. Derek descended on the pyramid with his followers and asked harshly, who is undergoing the tribulation? It actually has such great power. The power of the heavenly tribulation caused by Zen was too astonishing. Derek thought that it was some powerful Soul Sea Realm master undergoing the tribulation, but even a powerful Soul Sea Realm master would find it difficult to trigger such a terrifying thunder tribulation. Therefore, Derek had come personally to the Feather Emperor Island to investigate. Hearing Derek's question, Turner cupped his hands and said, Master Derek, Thad Luo, a divine-level talent of our Harlan Divine Kingdom, is undergoing the tribulation. Thad Luo. Derek was taken aback. He swept his gaze over the crowd and saw Zen sitting upright in a meditative pose not too far away. Wisps of smoke rose from the charred parts of his body. He is merely a warrior at the middle stage of virtual tribulation realm. How he is undergoing the tribulation? And how can he trigger such a powerful thunder tribulation? Derek was utterly shocked. It wasn't that he didn't believe that Zen could make a breakthrough and reach the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm in such a short time. After entering the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm, warriors would sooner or later undergo the heavenly tribulations. Derek came from the upper world, and to him and other warriors in the upper world, even a warrior at the virtual tribulation realm was considered a newcomer to cultivation. So it was quite impressive that a mere virtual tribulation realm warrior could actually instigate such a terrifying small heavenly tribulation. The emperors had never seen such a terrifying small heavenly tribulation before. How could they answer Derek's question? Derek frowned, but he stayed there and observed Zen carefully. He had already noticed Zen earlier. Zen could catch the eye of the great human powers of the upper world if they saw Zen's performance in the previous battles. However, the human race occupied over 10,000 supreme worlds in the upper world. Each supreme world had countless forces and even millions of sacred places. In Derek's opinion, a talent like Zen was insignificant in a supreme world, not to mention among the three great human forces in the upper world. Maybe a second-rate sacred place would regard him as one of the most important disciples. Furthermore, Derek was unlike Immortal Mist. Immortal Mist had used the power of the Purple Star Grand Palace to deduce Zen's fate. Derek, however, could not see Zen's fate with his eyes alone. Although Zen's performance was outstanding and he could be considered invincible among the warriors of his level in the four divine kingdoms, in Derek's eyes, he was nothing at all. However, that was his earlier impression of Zen. Now, after seeing such a massive tribulation, he was stunned. When Zen had made a breakthrough to the life and death realm, the first wave of small heavenly tribulation was already so terrifying. Where did this guy come from? This heavenly tribulation was not just limited to one wave. So Derek decided to observe the proceedings carefully. This heavenly tribulation was terrifying, so perhaps the lotus flower might bloom at the end of it. He wanted to see how many petals the lotus flower would release. Marine was standing behind Derek. When she found out that the previous thunder tribulation was triggered by Zen, she had mixed feelings. As the holy maiden of the secret sect, she was responsible for communicating with the upper world. She knew more about the upper world than the Soul Sea Realm warriors present. She didn't expect Zen to be the one who had gone through the tribulation. Meanwhile, Zen was still absorbing the power of thunder and lightning within his body in the same spot. Pure power spread throughout his body, dividing and infusing every cell of his body, stimulating rapid growth within his body. Any law power was not used only to destroy. For instance, the fire law originally symbolized annihilation, but contained within it the power of rebirth. And the thunder law could bring about life amidst annihilation. According to a saying, when the spring thunder strikes the earth, it can awaken all things that are hibernating and restore life to the natural world. This was the beginning of life. It was said that after one activated the soul sea and condensed his life vitality, he would need thunder in his belly constantly. The stimulation of the power of thunder would be able to give birth to life within his belly. This was the fourth layer of the thunder law, creation. Soon, Zen's body looked as if it had been reborn. The layer of carbonized skin on his body started to crack open, revealing the tender red flesh within. When the charred skin shed completely, his body looked like that of a newborn's. Will there be a second wave of attack? He wondered. After passing through the first wave of heavenly tribulation safely, Zen raised his head and looked skywards. Ordinary warriors would only have to combat the first wave of thunder tribulation when they were making a breakthrough to the life and death realm. But the more powerful one's talent was, the more waves of heavenly tribulation they would have to deal with and the more powerful they would become. Even divine-level talents would often face more than one wave of heavenly tribulation, so the chances of Zen facing more than one wave were very high. Sure enough, a faint golden shadow appeared in the sky. The golden light became more and more obvious and golden swords began to appear slowly one by one. This is the metal tribulation. This metal tribulation appears after the thunder tribulation. In all likelihood, it will be even more difficult to deal with, cried a Soul Sea Realm warrior, who had experienced the metal tribulation before. However, Derek had a look of disdain on his face. He looked down on all the Soul Sea Realm masters in the Divine Kingdoms for their lack of knowledge. It's only a metal tribulation. What's so surprising about that? He stated indifferently. For him, neither the thunder tribulation, metal tribulation, wind tribulation nor water tribulation held much weight. Only the lotus flower would be able to determine a warrior's true potential. While Zen's small heavenly tribulation was terrifying, he still hadn't given birth to the lotus flower. So his feat was not that impressive. Golden swords covered the sky, each of them sparkling with a dazzling light. 1,000 swords, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000. As the number of golden swords increased, they blotted out the sky and the sun. It looked just like one giant golden cloud. Chapter 858, Lotus Flower. As he looked at the golden long swords that kept gathering in the sky, Zen took a deep breath, his muscles tensing up once again. These golden swords were condensed by some law, but they did not contain any heavenly essence, which was why Zen was unable to tell the grade of these swords. But judging by the cold, silver flash of light that emanated from the edges of these swords, it was likely that they had immense power. A short while later, the golden cloud moved on its own, despite the absence of wind. With a ringing sound, the first golden sword shot down towards Zen. The rest quickly followed. The cloud formed by the golden swords transformed into a golden torrent that came surging towards Zen. Zen stood upright and firmly in his spot like a deep-rooted tree, his feet spread wide. His eyes glittered with a steely resolve as he looked at the golden torrent coming towards him. When I underwent the metal tribulation, I wore my demon heart armor and consumed over 200,000 supreme life vitality crystals, which was how I managed to survive the metal tribulation. These swords are much sharper than the swords I've faced before, and this boy doesn't have the demon heart armor to protect him. The powerful master at the Soul Sea Realm who had gone through the metal tribulation shook his head and said. The demon heart armor was a semi-divine weapon, an armor used to protect the body. As a defensive weapon, its value was on par with that of the common divine weapons. The powerful master of the Soul Sea Realm who had just spoken had borrowed it from War King Wind when he had to face the metal tribulation. War King Wind smiled helplessly at the master's words. If the demon heart armor had still existed, I can lend it to Thad. But unfortunately, the fact was that demon heart armor had been destroyed dozens of years ago. While they were talking, the golden torrent had already charged towards Zen. They are coming. As he looked at the first golden sword that was coming at him, Zen reached out and grabbed it, crushing it into pieces in a flash. This isn't a real sword. It's only condensed from the metal law and its strength seems to be inferior to that of a sacred weapon, Zen thought. He now knew the power of these swords after he had shattered the first golden sword. But in the next moment, the number of golden swords pelting towards Zen suddenly skyrocketed. He was unable to crush them all with his bare hands. Soon the golden swords came at him from all directions. Zen was like someone who couldn't swim in a large river and was soon submerged within this golden torrent. Clank, 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 clank. Zen's body was as sturdy as a sacred weapon. Every time a golden sword collided with Zen's body, it would turn into golden powder. The tiny powder quickly turned into bits of metal law and dissipated in the air. But even though these golden swords were not as strong as Zen's physical body, the edges of the swords were extremely sharp, and every edge could leave a small scratch on Zen. As numerous golden swords continued to stab Zen, the number of scratches left on Zen's body increased. After a while, it was obvious that the swords had managed to cut open Zen's skin. Blood began to spurt from the cuts. Zen sighed softly and closed his eyes, knowing that he had tried his best to resist the swords with his strong physical body. Thousands of miles away, in a desolate place in the western part of the Divine Kingdom continent stood massive towering mountains. Waves of formless sword energy suddenly appeared there and began to invade the vast mountains. A mountain that was tens of thousands of feet high began to collapse at a visible speed. It was as if there was a giant invisible mouth that was biting down on the mountain. A few seconds later, the mountain had completely disappeared, as if it hadn't existed at all. All that remained were specks of dust floating in the air. And one by one, more mountains followed the first into collapse. It took about 5 minutes for the entire mountain range to disappear into thin air. In the meantime, the golden swords on the Feather Emperor Island had all vanished as well. To the others, undergoing the heavenly tribulation was like experiencing a life and death situation, which was why it was also called the life and death tribulation. But it wasn't as difficult for Zen. No matter how powerful this heavenly tribulation was, as long as Zen's connection with the great world wasn't severed, nothing could kill him. There did exist the kind of heavenly tribulation that possessed the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. When some supermasters of the upper world underwent their tribulation, the power that would erupt would be enough to destroy a great world. After surviving the metal tribulation, the wind tribulation appeared in the sky again. He had to go through 5 waves of tribulation in all. An hour later, when nothing more appeared, Zen blinked at the clear sky and asked, "Is it finally over?" Zen felt relaxed in this moment. While he was undergoing his tribulation, the life vitality in his elixir field gradually solidified. Just as he stood up to leave, thinking that it was over, a phantom of a pure white lotus flower suddenly appeared in the sky. The lotus flower was still a bud and had yet to bloom. What is that? Why did a huge lotus flower appear in the sky? Is this also a part of the heavenly tribulation? It doesn't look like something ominous, though. The powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm were astonished. They stared blankly at the phantom of the lotus flower in the sky. They didn't know what it was, but Derek knew. When Derek saw the phantom of the lotus flower in bud, his expression suddenly changed, and his voice began to tremble. It has appeared. It has really appeared. I can't believe that this has happened. A lotus flower blooming in the small heavenly tribulation. This is incredible. Marine blinked as she saw this and fell into deep thought. She knew a little about this lotus flower, thanks to some of the most secretive documents in the secret sect. The classification of talents in the upper world was different from that in the lower world. There was no such thing as earth-level talent or heaven-level talent or divine-level talent in the upper world, where a martial artist's potential could only be gauged by the tribulation he or she had undergone. In other words, the appearance of the lotus flower during the tribulation would decide a warrior's level. It was recorded in the documents that the lotus flower was something beyond the concept of heavenly law. If the lotus appeared after a warrior underwent the tribulation, it was an indication that the martial artist had the potential to go beyond the heavenly law. Of course, this didn't mean that one would surely be able to go beyond the heavenly law just because the lotus flower had appeared. There were many warriors in the 100,000 supreme worlds, and there were only a few who had achieved that in the past 3.6 billion years. But according to the records, the lotus flower would only appear in the big heavenly tribulation. Why did it appear in the small heavenly tribulation that Zen is undergoing? Marine looked at Zen in a daze. Although Zen was her enemy, she had become more and more curious about him, now that the lotus flower had made an appearance. She said, "I wonder how many petals the lotus flower will have in Zen's tribulation. 3 or 5? Derek shook his head and said, "A martial artist who can make the lotus flower produce 3 petals is qualified to become the core of a 9th grade sacred place. If the lotus flower produces 5 petals, the person could enter a 10th grade sacred place and become the core of a first-rate force. Holy Maiden, please report this matter through the Reverse Spirit channel." Marine nodded. As the Holy Maiden of the secret sect, she was well aware of what was important and what was not. Since Zen had made the lotus flower bloom during his tribulation, the conflict between her and Zen was no longer important. Hearing their conversation, the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm felt chills pass through their veins, causing them to become serious. Although these powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm were mighty in the Divine Kingdom continent and were considered powerful figures in the lower world, they were nothing compared to the masters of the upper world. Although they were the rulers of the 7th grade Divine Kingdoms, they had spent many years but still hadn't been able to completely occupy the Feather Holy Sea, which was only an 8th grade sacred place of the dragon lineage human. Then what would a 9th grade sacred place be like? What would a 10th grade sacred place be like? This was simply unimaginable. The pure white lotus flower slowly revolved above Zen's head. After a long while, a pure white petal emerged slowly from the bud. The moment the petal came out, a fragrant smell wafted out from it and filled everyone's nostrils. This lotus flower is so fragrant. Fiona couldn't help but sniff the air. Although the fragrance was rich, it wasn't unpleasant. Just a deep breath and the fragrance seemed to seep into one's soul. "The first one," Marine said as she bit her lip. Though she had known the lotus flower from the documents, it was the first time she had seen a martial artist make the lotus flower bloom with her own eyes. And now she was actually looking forward to seeing more petals come out of it. Zen stood still on the ground, quiet as he looked at the lotus flower revolving slowly in the sky, his eyes clear as water. Through the cyan dragon's explanation, he already knew what this lotus flower represented. As the lotus flower revolved, another petal came out. The second one, Marine said, keeping up the count. Chapter 859, Bloom. If the lotus flower could produce 3 petals, it would make Zen qualified enough to become a core member of a 9th grade sacred place. I knew this kid wasn't ordinary. If he can ascend to the upper world, he would soar to great ranks in the future. Turner chuckled to himself. However, War Emperor York's unpleasant voice rang out again. HMPH, so what? No matter how talented this brat is, he is still trapped in the lower world like the rest of us. His words made Turner frown, but what Derek said next made the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm blanch, their hearts pounding with nervousness. If the boy can make the lotus flower produce enough petals, it will attract attention from the humans of the upper world. It is very likely that they would be willing to pay a great price to help you restore the ascending passageway in this great world. Derek sounded sure of himself. What? Restore the ascending passageway? How is that possible? Do the humans of the upper world really possess such great power? If the ascending passageway could be restored, we could. The powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm could not rein in their eagerness about this. They had worked hard to reach the Soul Sea realm and become mighty warriors, but they were trapped in the lower world and couldn't advance to the higher realms. One could imagine what a blow this was to them. However, there was nothing that they could have done previously to fix the ascending passageway, for it was not something within the ability of the warriors of the Soul Sea realm. If the ascending passageway was mended, it meant that they could ascend to the upper world and pursue higher levels of martial arts and achieve greater personal strength. Perhaps once they entered the upper world, they would face even more arduous challenges, which meant that they would also face more life and death situations. However, the warriors living in this world would rather make a splash for a moment than live their entire lives without serious ambition. Moreover, a higher level cultivation meant a longer lifespan for them. At this prospect, the powerful masters of the Soul Sea realm felt exhilaration run through their veins. As they trembled with joy, excited gasps escaped their throats. The 3 powerful masters of the Soul Sea realm from the Jade Martial House were also present. They stared at Zen with strange expressions on their faces, the excitement in them clear to see. They had been anticipating Zen's outstanding performance from the moment he entered the Jade Martial House, but they never expected him to possess the potential to change the course of their fate. At the moment, even War Emperor York was facing conflicting emotions. The grudges he held against Zen were nothing compared to a granted opportunity to ascend to the upper world. Master Derek, how many petals would be enough to attract the attention of the human race in the upper world, so that they could help us repair the ascending passageway? A powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm questioned. It was imperative to know. However, everyone was so excited that they seemed to have forgotten this crucial part. Derek pondered for a while, then said, maybe 7. At least 7, I think. If the lotus flower only produces 7 flowers, I'm not sure the humans from the upper world would offer a hand in repairing the ascending passageway. If it produces 9 petals, however, they will certainly pay heed and mend it. If the first layer of the lotus flower is in full bloom, there would be 9 petals in total. That would be the legendary 9-petal lotus flower, but in a supreme world in the upper world, it is difficult to find someone in the countless sacred places who could make such a lotus flower appear. Derek shook his head. It is too hard. In a supreme world, normally there are only about dozens or over 100 martial artists who have the ability to activate even 7 petals. In some weaker supreme worlds there are even fewer people who can achieve this. Hearing this, many of the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm were visibly disappointed. The vastness of a supreme world was beyond anyone's wildest imagination. However, according to Derek, there were only dozens or over 100 warriors in a supreme world who could activate 7 petals. The chances of it happening were too small. Moreover, according to Derek, even if Zen activated 7 petals, the humans of the upper world might not pay them attention anyway. Only if he could activate 9 of them would they mend the ascending passageway. They had been granted a new hope in order to change their fates. However, the flame of hope subsided as Derek doused water with his words. Their hearts sank. Just as they started to accept the lingering disappointment, Fiona spoke up, smiling, "Look. The third one. The third petal." Everyone was still dejected, but still, hope burned anew. They knew it was almost impossible for Zen to activate 9 petals. How could a martial artist from a lower world be able to compete with the countless talents of a supreme world? They were on completely different levels. The third petal came out, Marine said faintly, staring at Zen. The expression on her face became more incomprehensible as she thought of the time when this young fellow had employed calamity on her in the test of the Wheel of Fortune. Derek nodded casually. Yes, a 3-petal lotus flower. It must be enough to make the kid feel proud. When I was at the Soul Sea realm, the lotus flower that appeared in my tribulation had only 3 petals. Is Master Derek a 3-petal lotus flower warrior? A powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm asked. A complacent smile found its way onto Derek's face. In my first big heavenly tribulation after I entered the Soul Sea realm, I could only activate 3 petals. In the second tribulation, I activated 5. Being able to activate 5 petals was indeed a thrilling feat. The Soul Sea realm masters present had never heard of such a thing before. The lotus flower that had produced the 3 petals revolved slowly above Zen's head. The people waited quietly to see what would happen next. To the 4 divine kingdoms, the number of lotus petals Zen could activate was far important than exploration of the heavenly stellar secret land. After all, the heavenly stellar secret land could be explored any year, but this was the first time they had seen a lotus flower appear during the heavenly tribulation of a warrior. The 4th petal. Come on, come on. Callan, who had been attentively observing on the sidelines, couldn't help but shout out. Fiona, who stood beside him, smiled even wider. Callan, this isn't something that can come about by shouting. However, just as Fiona uttered these words, the 4th petal trembled and began to stretch out. Now that he has activated the 4th petal, the 5th would surely come out soon enough. Thad seems to be far more powerful than I am, Derek sighed, a smile inching across his face. As expected, just after the 4th petal opened up, the 5th petal followed. The powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm took deep breaths, unable to believe their eyes. The number of petals a lotus flower produced would be odd. Zen had already activated 5 petals. If he could activate more, there would be 7 petals in total. 9 petals would be too tough for him to accomplish, but 7 might still attract the attention of the human race of the upper world. There was still a great chance that they would be willing to offer a hand in restoring the ascending passageway. As long as he could activate 1 more petal. 1 more petal would be enough. Thad, come on, Turner mumbled quietly. Who would have known that this kid would become our only hope? War King Wind shook his head, continuing, I hope he succeeds. The powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm prayed together. At the moment, they did not want to disturb Zen, so they lowered their voices. In fact, the number of petals that the lotus flower produced was not something that Zen himself could control. It wasn't that he could get more out of it if he put in more effort. The number of the petals to be opened was already set and could not be changed by will. It was probably because the Soul Sea realm masters were too aware of this matter that they were overcautious. While everyone waited in anticipation, the lotus flower still spun. However, they didn't see any more petals coming out. 1 more, just 1 more petal. Please, a Soul Sea realm master cried out, weeping soundly. He looked miserable. The supposed manner of a powerful warrior of the Soul Sea realm was nowhere to be found in him. He was like a pitiful beggar. He himself didn't know whom he was pleading. Was he begging Zen? Was it a cry to the heavens? Or to the lotus flower? The other powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm didn't make a mockery of him. If his pleading worked, they would throw off their airs and beg as well. Now was not the time to save face. Zen blinked and stared at the lotus flower in the sky. He wasn't aware of the great sensation he was causing among the crowd beside the pyramid. They expected more petals to open up. After waiting a long time, Zen sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. The cyan dragon had told him that the number of petals the lotus flower would produce was determined by fate. It was not something that could be influenced by his will. It would be useless to worry too much. Zen understood that he could not change this. But the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm expected something else. They didn't know the origins of the lotus flower or what the use of it, but they believed that things came about only when one had utmost belief. At such a critical moment, they saw Zen not looking at the lotus flower closely, but sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, contrary to their expectations. War Emperor York was especially anxious. He rounded on Turner, his words full of embarrassment. Turner, can you go talk to Zen and tell him to be more careful about this? He can sit and meditate at any moment, but at this crucial time, he should be more concerned about the lotus flower. Chapter 860, 7 Petals. War Emperor York quickly looked back to the numerous times when he made Zen's life hell and even wanted to put him to death, on more than one occasion. He thought it both funny and tragic that he was now on the verge of kneeling in front of that very same kid just to beg him to sprout more petals on that lotus flower of his. War Emperor York was the most ambitious among the kings, which meant he was also the one who pined the most for ascension to the upper world. Therefore, he couldn't help but feel so distraught yet also so hopeful as he watched the petals on Zen's lotus flower unfurl one by one. Now that it had stopped blooming, War Emperor York was ready to get down on his knees to see just a few more petals from that lotus. He didn't really hold out hope at first since he thought it would be impossible for Zen's lotus to have 7 petals, but he began to change his mind once he saw the flower reveal 5. But now it had stopped blooming. He wanted to kneel, to cry, to beg, but that would be embarrassing given the animosity he and Zen had with each other. War Emperor York could only turn to Turner for help. He and Turner weren't really in the best of terms, but the two were able to hold themselves back given the harmony that the 4 divine kingdoms enjoyed with each other. Still, Turner couldn't help but snort when he saw the embarrassed expression on War Emperor York's face. He shook his head before stepping down the pyramid and walking towards Zen. He wasn't doing it for War Emperor York. No, he was doing it for the sake of all Soul Sea Realm warriors of the 4 divine kingdoms. Turner stopped several dozen feet away from Zen. The young man still hadn't completed his tribulation, so Turner wasn't sure if he should get too close to him. "Thad, can you hear me? I mean, don't you think it's improper to sit and meditate while the lotus flower is blooming?" Zen opened his eyes and looked up at Turner. "What do you mean, Your Majesty?" he asked with a perplexed look. "Why is it improper?" "I mean," Turner trailed off, not really sure how to explain this to Zen. "Just maybe you should take it a bit more seriously." Turner pointed at the lotus flower that slowly spun in the air. "Take it more seriously," Zen repeated as he also looked at the flower. He understood what Turner had meant. They thought it quite half-hearted of him to meditate at this moment. The problem, however, was that Zen himself hadn't really planned on taking this seriously in the first place. According to the Cyan Dragon, the number of lotus petals was something that had already been predetermined by destiny. Zen had no control over how many petals would unfurl from the bulb. Nonetheless, the serious look on Turner's face was enough to make him feel a tiny bit embarrassed. Zen chuckled and got to his feet. Turner had taken care of him a lot, so he had to show him some respect by taking this matter seriously. The lotus flower in the sky now had 5 petals, and he couldn't help but wonder if the petals were significant to Turner and the others. Of course, he didn't know that the number of petals was actually tied to the fates of those mighty Soul Sea Realm warriors. The lotus in the sky continued to spin slowly, neither disappearing nor showing any indication of blooming more petals. This made the Soul Sea Realm warriors even more anxious. "Bloom, please, please show us more petals. Goodness, please let the flower bloom faster. All this waiting is torture. We've been waiting here for an hour, but it feels like more than a year." Now, one must understand that a Soul Sea Realm warrior had an average lifespan of around 10,000 years, so an hour was like a brief, fleeting moment for them. However, each minute that had passed for the past hour had been extremely stressful for them while they waited for the lotus flower to bloom. It was only after 2 more hours that the lotus flower would once again tremble, indicating the appearance of another petal. "Oh dear God, do you guys see this? The flower is continuing to bloom," one Soul Sea Realm warrior shouted with excitement. The excitement came in the form of an intensely powerful sound wave. It was nothing to the other Soul Sea Realm warriors, but it was enough to render a few young talents unconscious. Even Zen had to cover his ears. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" another Soul Sea Realm master berated. He looked at Zen with concern, afraid that the sound wave might have disturbed the young man. The raving warrior immediately realized his mistake. Forgive me," he stammered. I was too excited. I'm sorry." "He's right, it is continuing to bloom," Turner mumbled. Of course, he was also excited, but, unlike the warrior earlier, he made sure to keep his voice low. A 6th petal was slowly extending from the inside of the flower, unfurling like a delicate lady's finger. There was a certain beauty to it that captured the hearts of the crowd. Fiona couldn't help but stare in fascination at the sight. "This lotus flower is so beautiful," she gushed. "Great, we now have some prospect of ascending to the upper world. After so many years, I thought we were all doomed to die here in the lower world. I never expected that this day would come." The excitement was overwhelming, and many of the Soul Sea Realm warriors felt the waves of unprecedented happiness flood through their bodies. However, Derek was quick to douse their hopes with the cold, bitter reality. "You all forget that even if the lotus flower yields 7 petals, the possibility of repairing the path to the upper world would only rise to around 30%. Though a 7-petal lotus flower is indeed rare, repairing the path is more troublesome. It cannot be guaranteed. A path to the upper world was normally repaired in the lower world. If it was repaired from the upper world, then that would be what they'd call a reverse repair. However, this reverse repair was 100 times more difficult than the conventional way, and the price was also higher. Only 30%. Master Derek, maybe we can persuade them. Maybe we can. War Emperor York, who had been so happy when he saw the 6th petal, found his mood plummeting as cold sweat trickled down his back. You can what? Derek scoffed. What in this divine kingdom continent is worthy of the upper world's attention? Didn't you try to get that ancestral dragon egg for many years but never succeeded? This great world isn't really worthy of any attention. War Emperor York choked, but Derek's words did make sense. No matter how much they stung, they made sense. The difference between the upper world and lower world was like that of a capital city and a small mountain village. Why would a lofty capital city ever pay attention to the matters of an insignificant village? They wouldn't even show any interest to a divine weapon. However, Derek spoke once again, do not worry. I will help as much as I can. Moreover, you will need to rely on the Holy Maiden to send this news to the upper world. His words had everyone looking expectantly at Marine, who nodded her head seriously. I will also do my best. Marine was very much aware that she was only a messenger. The one who truly held the reins was still Master Derek. The 7th petal has appeared. While they had been talking, the 7th petal had decided to reveal itself. A lotus flower only had an odd number of petals. Since a 6th had appeared, they were sure that it would eventually be followed by a 7th. This was within their expectations. A Soul Sea Realm Master couldn't help but sigh, if only it could have 2 more petals. His remark caused Derek to snort with laughter. Yes, if only he could summon a lotus flower with 9 petals. If that happened, then the upper world would have no choice but to pay attention. No matter how large the cost, they would surely repair the passageway. His words caused a glimmer of hope to appear among the Soul Sea Realm warriors' faces. The ascension path was something that was too important for them. A 7-petal lotus flower only gave them a 30% chance, but a 9-petal lotus flower could bump that figure to 100%. They couldn't stop themselves from hoping that more petals would bloom. However, Derek was quick to shatter their hopes once again. It is a pity. A lotus flower with 9 petals is almost impossible. It is something that is rarely seen even in a supreme world. I'm not saying that lower world warriors are inferior, but I've never heard of one that could summon a lotus flower with 9 petals. His words effectively calmed down those Soul Sea Realm warriors once they heard his conclusion. Of course, a better result would be nice, but looking forward to it too much might only lead to bitter disappointment, especially if the chances were already too slim. It seemed that they had no choice but to resign themselves to their fate. How could they possibly expect a warrior from the lower world to summon a lotus flower with all 9 petals? It was preposterous. The thought had all of them reverting back to their calm, collected Soul Sea Realm Master personas, who now stared indifferently at the lotus flower that continued to rotate slowly in the air. Another 2 hours passed and, to everyone's shock, the flower started trembling once again.